Ladies and gents, welcome back. It's another week gone by. This is crazy. It just happened so fast. This week really flew by. Lots of different stories to talk about tonight. Lots of different things happening. And some things that I think are distractions, but, you know, we're talking about them anyway. Well, let's get to those things. But hey, first, before we get into any of this stuff, my name's Clyde. If you're new to here, welcome to all the new people that have been coming to the channel as of this past week. It's crazy. I started doing this thing on the Shorts algorithm, and it's brought in a lot of new faces to the channel, and it's great. It's great to see all these new people here. This is the live stream. Every Friday night we do a live stream here. I'm on the West Coast, so it's quite late for people on the East, in the east of Canada, or in the United States, if that's where you happen to be. Somewhere else in the world, well, whatever. It's just really a weird time for you regardless. But hey, this is what we do here on the channel. Normally every morning I do live I don't do lives in the morning. I do videos talking about Canadian news, politics, things that I think matter to a lot of Canadians, but also world stories and just things that matter to me the most. And I like to share these things with all of you guys. The community is fantastic. We've been doing this for going on what, a year and a half now, talking about these things, and a lot of people really enjoy it. So I'm just going to keep on rolling with it. I'm having a great time doing it, and I love having all of you guys here to join me. And so I do that every Monday through Friday. Every morning I wake up super duper early and do this before I go to work and start wrenching. And I have to go to bed super early. I try my best, but hey, a lot of sleepless nights because of the stuff that's been going on in Canada. But I think a lot of people need to have this news brought to them. What I like to do is present basically as many sides as I possibly can. Try to unpack. The news comes in this tightly wound spin. It's what we call it. They wrap this little package, put a bow on it, and send it off to you as a piece of propaganda. I like to rip it open and see what it really has to show, and possibly we can get more information out there for people. I'm not making up your mind for you. It's up to you to decide what's going on in the world. I'm just presenting as many of the facts as I can, and I get a little bit of my own conjecture. I try to do the old 70-30 split. Hopefully that works out. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Milady. Chan Milady. Thank you so much. Let's get the chat in here. Thank you so much for the $13.99 super chat. Really appreciate that. If you have something to say, add that in there as well. I'll read that out for you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the support for the channel. It helps a lot for, there's been a lot of improvements lately. If you've noticed, a lot of the studio has been getting nicer looking, and well, just doing our best here with trying to ramp up the production of the show, so it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing to watch, as well as getting you guys as much of this news as possible in the best way possible, with the most honesty. And that's really what it comes down to. Is I really just want to share with you guys insights and what I really think about these subjects. And sometimes it may not be all that popular with everybody. But hey, before we get into this too much, oh, by the way, yeah, I'm on a ramble here, aren't I? Every Monday through Friday in the mornings we do this. I've been doing I do live streams like this every Friday. With the exception of next Friday. So next Friday, my daughter has a violin recital, and I will be joining that. But what I'll try to do is fill the time slot with something. Hopefully I could do a premiere at the time, because I know a lot of people love the chats. It's a great time for the community to get together, and we'll get that going if at all possible, if I have time coming up, and I hope I do, because I know a lot of people look forward to this particular time of the week. Also, I've been doing shorts. I don't know if you've noticed the shorts on the channel. Let's get it over to YouTube here, and show you guys what I'm talking about. So YouTube has a lot to offer these days. It's a lot more than the plain old YouTube where it's just you post videos and whatnot. If you head over to the channel, this is what you'll see here. You'll see, well, it's looking a lot nicer these days, thanks to a good friend of mine there, Vesper. He's been helping out with some of the looks. But moving on to this, so you have home videos and then shorts. Shorts is the other thing, and I've been adding to the shorts on YouTube. I know a lot of people like the shorts. I've actually been having a lot of fun with it because this new style that I found is a fun, creative outlet for me, as well as the ability to get more news out that maybe I don't have a whole news story, but I have a little snippet of something. I can put it out there, and boom, there it is. You guys can see it, a little bit of conjecture, a little bit of this and that, and it just adds to the shorts algorithm, and it gets more eyes on this stuff, because this is the whole point of this, is to get the eyes on that stuff. If you look here, there's actually some other tabs on YouTube as well. There's the live, so you can go check out the previous live streams. There's been many. I know that's a funny one. That was when I was in Japan. But there's also podcasts. The podcast, the Did Something podcast, is on the channel, and I believe we've done up to episode 16 now. Last one was with Uncle Hack. Check those out if these are long form thing, if that's what you're into. I know people who are tuning into the live stream, that's kind of your gig. You like listening to the long form content. So this is just another way of doing that. I'm incorporating that a bit with the live streams here, so you guys will get to see some of these conversations way ahead of time before everybody else. But hey, why don't we do a roll call while we're getting this live stream started? Where did you get your notification from? I'd love to hear that. Let me know where as well you are in the world. And if you're in Canada, be a little more specific. Province, maybe town, city. Throw that in there. But also, where did you get the notification to join the live stream? Was it on social media? Was it on Twitter? Was it in Discord? Was it YouTube that sent this out to you? These are all oh, come on. That's funny. All right, that's good. But let us know where that came from, because that's really valuable information for the channel, and it helps me spend more time on the social medias that are helping out the channel much more, and maybe fill some gaps where it's much needed. Rob Hellfire with a 550 super chat saying, remember, hit the like button, Freedom family. Stay united, stay positive. Cheers. Beers, glasses, and rocking on. I love it. Thank you so much. Yes, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps out in the algorithmic thing on YouTube here. The way it works is it tells YouTube that, you know, there are people of a particular demographic that really enjoy this kind of live stream. And when you hit that like button, it tells YouTube to say, hey, you know what? We should probably recommend this to other people who like this kind of stuff. So this would be people who normally watch probably content that you also watch, maybe some other channels, and they see similar profiles out there, and they go, I'm going to recommend this because it looks like they've never ever seen that kind of thing before. So we're going to get them on that. Alberta Foothills here. Hi, Clyde and all. How's it going, Sky Pilot? YouTube during the Freedom Convoy. Yeah, no, I get that. Where you first heard about the channel, I mean, where you got the notification for this live stream. Did you get it on YouTube, or did you get it from social media? Because I put the link out to a few social medias and just testing it out to see who's getting notified where. So I'm looking forward to this stream tonight. We're going to talk about a few things, and then about an hour in, we're going to have a couple of guests. We have Vesper, D, and we have Marty up north joining us tonight, and that's going to be really good. I really appreciate the company of both of those guys. They always have really good things to say, and I think as a panel, I think we could have a really interesting conversation about things as they have been going around Canada in this this crazy time that we live in. Absolutely. So hey, Niagara region here. I've been following you on YouTube since Live from the Shed. You know, I still talk to Dave. He's such a good dude. Yeah, Dave's great. He was out here in British Columbia. We just missed each other. Schedules didn't work out, but hey, next time, either when I'm in Ontario or when he's out here, we're gonna meet up, because yeah, he's good. He's good people. Definitely. Toronto, vote Chris Sky for mayor. Yeah, Chris Sky for mayor. Tell me about it. I don't know what to take from that. The the Toronto mayoral race seems to be quite the funny comedy mix going on there, and interruptions at their debates. I don't think Chris Guy was at that debate. What was the story there? Why wasn't he there? I missed Live from the Shed. We all do. It wasn't for him. He was like, I'm gonna go back and be a regular person, doing regular stuff and not spending overtime, because this is what this is. It's overtime. You have to really, really enjoy doing this, or it really can prove to be quite a chore. The CB Fixes All is dreaming about Clyde. Get out of here. I caught that. Suzanne, thank you so much for member for 3 months. Hey, there's a great stream. Here is to a great stream. I'm looking forward to the conversation that's coming up, but also getting into some of this information, some of this stuff that we're going to be talking about this evening when it comes to news from around Canada. Discord only. Okay, Steve, that's good to know. And for those that don't know what Discord is, it's another social media app. It was originally brought about by gamers, I guess, and it was a gaming platform for gamers to get together and play games together. But it just so happens to have a really, really good video and audio and computer. You can share your screen. So like FaceTime, audio, chat rooms are way better there, and you can have these closed communities where they're invite only, and it's great. So I have one set up, and the link is in the description of all my videos, including this live stream, and you can go down there. It's free to join. Check it out. Get over into the Discord, because the video chats are great, and this is where we like to hang out after the live streams. There's much more to talk about, and it's a great time for the community to tell me what they're saying about things, and I get to hear directly from the community. It's great. Mainstream media will not even mention Chris Sky's name, so that should tell you all you need to know about him. Okay, yeah, they won't say his name. I've seen him all over social media. He needs to hold his phone up so he's not always staring down at it. I would appreciate that. That would just the view is always odd. Clyde could be an anchor for Tucker. I would think this would be a great show, in my opinion. Hey, well, somebody send that over to Tucker Carlson, and that would be great. I know he's moving over to Twitter. We'll see how that goes. I would always love to be his Canadian correspondent. I would never turn that down. That's for sure. Kevin Watson with the $10 super chat. Just because I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you so much. I appreciate you right back. Thank you. All the support is always very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Justin got heckled in Toronto today. Oh my, really? I don't know if I saw that. He gets heckled everywhere he goes, but that's pretty funny. Trudeau heckled. Trudeau gets heckled in Toronto. I'm looking at this. Oh, that's the Woodstock clip. Hold on. Where was this? Okay, I'm not finding a clip. Just I'm seeing people's YouTube videos. I can't share those. Trudeau heckled while visiting. That's May 29th. Okay, no, these are old ones. So I'll get into that if I can find it later. We'll get into that. But hey, I wanted to start this off. Where was I going to go with this? I was going to go into, Maxime Bernier was mentioned by Pierre Poilievre today. And I know there's a lot of fans of Maxime Bernier on the show, and I'm neither here nor there. I'll challenge him on things, and I like him on other things, and I'm sitting in the middle. I'm not being judgmental here. But obviously I'm a fan of Pierre Poilievre as well, and people are going to hate me for that too, right? It's just, there's no win in this whole situation with this divide between the PPC bros and the PP bros. But whatever. I mean, you're never gonna see me with pom poms. Let's just put it that way. I'm never gonna be out with the rah rah rah. These are my guys. Nope. These are gonna be the situation is a case where I hope the best candidate wins, obviously, but I do have my opinions on this. But I've had Maxime Bernier twice on the show. Great guest, and I believe I'll be having him again hopefully soon. I've been talking behind the scenes on some of that. I've also been talking behind the scenes about some of the candidates for the Conservative Party in British Columbia, because the Conservative Party in British Columbia has not really had much of a big takeoff or much of a big presence, especially in like the lower mainland area. But with the NDP really, I don't know how else to say this, but shit in the pot when it comes to politics, we're seeing a resurgence of efforts by the Conservatives to get their name out there and hopefully win some more seats in British Columbia. BC has a cons party? Who knew? Right? Who knew? Well, they're trying to get their name out there, and I've been talking behind the scenes. Hopefully get some of the representatives on here. NDP do not want to talk to me. It's just, we saw it in the election in Alberta. There's certain journalists, there's certain people in social media that they'll communicate with, and then there's others that they just refuse to communicate with. Whether, I mean, you can have your thoughts about Keean Bexty. I think he's a journalist. I think sometimes he's a little bit overboard, but he's still a journalist nonetheless, and he should be allowed in these press conferences where they ask questions. If she decides not to answer the questions, that's one thing. But here's a trend that's been going, and I'll tell you what, a lot of people are just not keen on that trend. People are not keen on the idea that politicians won't answer questions to certain outlets or to certain people. We've seen in the past year or so or more, the Conservatives actually reaching out to smaller creators, even on YouTube, smaller news outlets, and making themselves available. So I'm going to jump on this train. If people are going to make themselves available for conversations, I'll get on that and I'll speak with people. And again, if the NDP want to come in and talk to me, the invitation is open. The invitation is absolutely open. If you're watching this and you're an NDP candidate, please contact me. I'll have you on. I'll be fair. I'm totally fair. I'll be just as fair as I would be to anyone else that I have on the channel, and that's the way I want to take it. But yeah, UCP Alberta, let anyone comment. I love them. Yes, yeah, they were. It went well. It went well, that election. We're probably going to be talking quite a bit about that when Marty comes on, because as you know, on the channel, I've had Marty on week after week during this election to give his opinions on what's been going on. But hey, back to politicians giving their opinions on other politicians. Here's Pierre Poilievre being asked about whether he sees Maxime Bernier as a threat to his possible candidacy for Prime Minister of Canada. And well, I mean, I'll just let it play out. We'll hear what he has to say here.
Hi, I'm just wondering how you feel about Mr. Bernier and if he's a threat to your party in that seat in Portage-Lisgar.
Maxime Bernier is just like Justin Trudeau. Both of them have expressed support for Quebec separatism. Both of them would have a hard time, would need a map to find Portage or Winkler. Both of them said they admire China's dictatorship. Both of them want free trade with China. Both of them support legalizing hard drugs. Both of them supported woke policies in the House of Commons, even though they put on a big act outside of the House of Commons. Only the Conservative Party will bring home lower prices by axing the carbon tax. Only Conservatives will bring home powerful paychecks with lower taxes that reward hard work. Only Conservatives will protect farmers, hunters, and licensed sport shooters against the attacks of Justin Trudeau. We are the only common sense party that has a chance to win. And there's one more thing that Trudeau and Bernier have in common. If you vote for either of them, you'll end up with a Liberal government.
Okay, that last bit at the end, that's quite a burn, because it's, well, obviously the idea of vote splitting, the thing that gets asked to Maxime Bernier the most. I've asked him twice now about vote splitting in 2 different ways, but this is the most common thing that's asked. If you, and Pierre Poilievre saying here that if you vote for Maxime Bernier, if you vote PPC in the election, you're basically vote splitting. You're giving the vote away to the Liberals, and that's the mantra there. A clever way of putting it. But yeah, bringing up a bunch of things, you know, the idea of saying that you're anti-woke except in policy. Now, he says that because Maxime Bernier famously voted for compelled speech. That was, I think, Bill C-14, I believe it was. I may be wrong on that number, but it was the one that Jordan Peterson was railing about, and that was the one that allowed for compelling people to use particular gendered language, compelling people to do that or else. And when the words are or else, in government, well, what else does that mean? I mean, the government has one thing: they have violence. And they have the ability to use violence against you, to lock you up, give you fines. What would that be? What would that look like? We don't know. We don't know because it hasn't been ruled on. Well, no, it has. It has been monetary. The misgendering happened, I believe, in British Columbia, and an entrepreneur, a business person, was sued over an employee who claimed that they were misgendered. So this is a thing, and that was a thing that Max voted for. I asked him about that, and he said that he was misguided and he was told the wrong thing. Of course, the Conservatives all voted against it. I'm not sure why he went against the Conservative vote. Perhaps I could ask him again and with a little bit more clarity if he comes on. Well, I believe he might be coming on the show again because I had challenged his position, his abortion position, in a video that I made, asking if it was pandering or if he was genuine about it. And the reason why I asked if he was genuine about it is because the way the law is written in Canada when it comes to abortion, it's not like the United States where it's vague on when a human being becomes a human being and has rights. In Canada, it's actually clear. I think it's Section 233, if I'm not mistaken, of the Criminal Code, and it clearly lays out that a human being becomes a human being with rights at the point that they exit the birth canal and take their first breath. So because of the way that law is written, you can't make contention in the abortion debate and ban a particular type of abortion writ large without actually contending against that law. So you'd have to, whether you agree with it or not. I'm saying this in a very mundane sort of manner. I'm not saying that I agree with it. What I'm saying, though, is this is what the law says. And if you want to make a challenge to that, you have to challenge that law specifically. And you can't just write a new piece of legislation that bans something when the law says that somebody has a right to do a thing. So this is why I called into question if he's serious about it. Why isn't he bringing this up? Or is it just because of the new riding that he happens to be running in this by-election that's coming up? Which I believe I had a picture of. Yeah, that's right. Here's a poster that he has out there. People of Portage, Lisgar. And I guess that's why he said he couldn't point out Portage on a map. Pierre Poilievre said. But here's the big PPC sign. A strong voice for your family, Maxime Bernier. So hey, good on him. Hopefully he does what he can in this election. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to poo-poo on the PPC, and I don't want to poo-poo on PP. It's that's where I'm at. I'm not picking sides here, but I will report on it. That's That's for sure. And because I want to give because I have sentiment, like things that both have said that I agree about. So I'm still open to whatever, but that's kind of where I'm at there. But hey, let's get into a little bit more dirt that was flung, and this dirt that was flung this week was again by Pierre Poilievre, but this time in the Parliament, and this was during the Q&A, the question and answer period, the question period in Parliament, where they get to pose passive-aggressive questions back at each other and answer none of them. That's what Parliament is, folks. This is what we do. It's a soap opera every day in Parliament. It's ridiculous, but it is what it is. It's better than having no dialogue whatsoever, even though the dialogue is ignored by both sides. It is just that it's passive aggressive, and sometimes it's funny, but this time it was not that funny. I mean, a lot of people took this as like a big but okay, well, let's get into it. Okay, Pierre Poilievre from the Post Millennial here calls out Justin Trudeau over being forced to resign as a high school teacher mid-semester. And this is the article from the Post Millennial. During question period on Wednesday, MP and Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre called out Justin Trudeau over being forced to resign as a teacher 2 decades ago. The Prime Minister has yet to come clean regarding his mysterious and sudden departure from West Point Grey Academy in Vancouver, and in the years since, numerous explanations have been provided by his team, school officials, and reporters. Yeah, we'll get into that. Okay, so here's what was actually said in the Parliament for everybody to check it out.
So, the high school drama teacher over here accuses others of liking the sounds of their own voices. This from a guy who, if he were made of chocolate, he would eat himself. But we don't want him to do that until after he answers my question, which I keep asking. It's about the cost of groceries in BC and everywhere else. Now, he's right. The NDP has already put in a carbon tax there. But he wants to force them to increase it by almost 40 cents to 61 cents a litre, a federally imposed tax by the costly coalition of the Liberals and NDP. How much will it add to the cost of groceries for the average family? How much?
Honorable Prime Minister.
So before we move on with this, I'm seeing comments in the comment section saying here that, yeah, Clyde said this is a soap opera, and here we are still propping this up. Well, actually, what I'm getting at here is that this is a distraction, and I want to show you why, and why we should be talking about the Chinese interference story. This is why I didn't actually cover this story when it was hot and when everybody else was doing it. I was still covering the Chinese interference during the news cycle. Here we are on Friday evening, so I can talk about this, and I'm going to break it down, and this is what we're going to do. But this is the main purpose of why I didn't report on it when it was hot. Because, yeah, I know you could get a ton of views, you can get a ton of stuff, but no, I wanted to talk about it tonight because there's way more nuance to it, and well, I want to show for you why this is a distraction and why we should be paying attention to the Chinese interference story, and why that's number one, and it should be, because that's important. And I understand, all-seeing heart, why we should be paying attention to the WHO stuff. And there are a lot of channels covering that, and I'd like to cover that. What I would like to do is find someone who's more knowledgeable on it, because I've been focusing on this other stuff. I'm not fully up to speed on that particular story. So hopefully I can actually be steered. Maybe someone can steer me in the right direction to find somebody to bring on the channel to maybe make us more aware of that. If I could, I'd get Leslyn Lewis to come on the channel. Maybe I'll throw something her way. I don't know if she'll answer. Perhaps you guys can all tweet at Leslyn Lewis. Hey, go on Clyde's Clyde do something. Talk to him, and we'll get this information out there. So I know Leslyn Lewis is fighting the good fight when it comes to that. But Viva knows a lot about that. Maybe I could get Viva come on and talk about that. But yeah, possibly. But yeah, I'll hit up that story as soon as I have more information. Just me, I identify as a lowlander. What? Okay, I don't know if that's referred to me. Oh no, it's saying at just me. Okay, excuse me. I'm getting the burps here. Let's move on with this story because I want to get this over with. Because it's a moment, but it's actually it's not that great, and it's not that worthwhile here.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I was a high school teacher before getting into politics, and I'm having a little trouble remembering what exactly the job that the Leader of the Opposition had before getting into politics.
Okay, so that being said, that was a burn. That was a dig. It was a dig at Pierre Poilievre for the fact that Pierre Poilievre has been a career politician since day one. Like he's definitely been that. He's been working at being a politician, not working out in the private sector, not doing any other things. So yeah, despite Trudeau's shortcomings, he was able to say that, and that was a dig at Pierre Poilievre in that situation.
Grocery rebate, with a growing economy, with great middle class jobs.
Yeah, and he says a bunch of yada yada that nobody cares about because it doesn't really affect anything. Chippy's Outdoors gifting 5 Clyde Do Something memberships. Thank you so much, my man. And everybody get in the comments there in the chat and thank Chippy's Outdoors for gifting those memberships to you. Make sure you get in there and you say thank you. Thank you very much, my man. Appreciate it.
Dental care that has helped 300,000 kids access dental care over the past number of months, including 1,100 in his own riding. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to be there for Canadians.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Yes, and he left right in the middle of the semester, and I'm having trouble remembering why.
Oh.
Okay, so that's all that's said there. Yes, and I'm having trouble remembering
the next
why.
skater in, Nigel Hughes.
Okay, autoplay. Thanks, Rumble. Autoplay. Fix your app. So that's what was said, and that's innuendo, and it's alluding to a thing, or at least that's how everybody on Twitter was taking that. And what it was the innuendo about allegations that stem from the internet. They stem from the ether, the wild, unsubstantiated claims about Trudeau's sexual impropriety. Now, there have been other claims of Trudeau's sexual impropriety, and a lot of people are conflating the two. This claim is a different claim than the claim of a journalist who claimed that she was groped by Trudeau while she was trying to, interview with him, and then he said, "Oh, I misunderstood the situation," and apologized for it, for having done what he did. He said he wouldn't have been so forward had he known that she was a journalist. I don't know what that means. That seems like indecent behavior. But it sounds like a guy who's being too forward with a chick. Anyway, here's the thing. When I see the story that looks bogus, I want to share with you guys a story that looks like it's bogus. And I've tried, you see, here's my thing. I've tried digging up dirt on Trudeau to find out what he's been up to and any misgivings in his history. And I report on all of this stuff. Anything I can get my hands on, I'll put it out there because I think he's an immoral person. I think he's an awful guy. He lies. He's a terrible actor, and he's really selling us a bill of goods in Canada, and it's really hurting us as a country. But my take on this is no matter how far I get down this one, it all ends up not at dead ends, but at people making stuff up. And that's really what it comes down to. And it's not really a case of, well, I don't know, it's innuendo, nobody really knows. No, it's more of a case of we know where this came from, and it lacks any sort of credibility. And that's the thing. And the problem with this is what I found on social media was because Pierre Poilievre mentioned this story, a lot of people were doing a thing that we hate when the left does it. And that's it's called an appeal to authority, and it's a logical fallacy that you're not supposed to use in debate, and it's because it's not proof. It's not proof for evidence of a thing. What it is it's saying, well, this other guy said it, and he's an authority, so it's true, or it's got to be true, and that's what I'm getting a lot of. Because Pierre said this in that instant, that okay, now this gives more credibility to this this accusation, which I think obviously is just that's just illogical. Because somebody else of a higher authority uses bad argumentation doesn't mean that it's more credible at all. And I think that well, my instinct, my gut tells me Pierre got burned really hard, and this was a moment where he thought. He got flustered and he just threw out an accusation, and it was like live thinking, right? Oh, okay. He mentioned jobs. What job did he have? He had school. What controversy can I tie to? Oh yeah, he got kicked out of that school. I can't remember why, and give innuendo because he knows it's a false claim. You wouldn't give credibility to that claim, and it just sounds like a bunch of crap to me. Now, the original article here is this Buffalo Chronicle, and this is the article that really got a lot of people worked up about this story. Trudeau's accuser lands a 7-figure NDA to keep quiet about Wes Gray's departure. Now, this is a tabloid. Let's make no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is not a publication that is known for any sort of real news at all. In fact, this is just like a slander piece, and it's one of those ones where it was made to as a rag against Canadian politicians. I believe like most of what they've written was about Canadian politicians, and it's based in the United States, making it difficult to sue. And this is the way it goes. Sources are telling the Buffalo Chronicle that Prime Minister Trudeau's accuser has been in talks with private attorney for more than a week, discussing heated sexual relationship that began and ended more than 18 years ago when a young woman was a student at Vancouver's prestigious West Point Grey Academy. The Chronicle is told that the two engaged in months-long affair beginning in the summer of 2000, both on and off campus. Non-disclosure and accompanying disparagement agreement. Sorry, I don't know why dyslexia kicks in everywhere once in a while in the worst times. Were signed last night, according to the source. The source, there's no real source, for more than $2.25 million Canadian. Now, this is just. It's allegations. It's just allegations that come out of nowhere. Now, I tried to do digging to see if there was any credibility to this story at all. Because of course, if there is any kind of credibility, want to get to the bottom of it. But really, it reeks. It reeks. And this one article, and you can take this article however you want, is from Canada Land. And it's another one of those, it's another publication that, you could trust it or you don't. The thing that I liked about this publication is they gave links to every source, every data point that they made. They have a link to it, and they get right to the point of what's going on in this story. Now, rumors, and it's actually a really unbiased article, in my opinion. It doesn't go one way or the other. But here's the thing. Here's the thing, folks. I want to bury Trudeau, but this isn't the story to bury him with. And here's the problem, is when everybody gets fixated on a story that's a not story, they end up going down that rabbit hole instead of focusing their energy on things that are real, that are actually real, that we can go after. And there's a reason why they keep wanting to shift away from the Chinese interference story, because that's a real story, and they really, really want to get away from that one entirely. Are you still being forced to do something? What? Forced to watch what? What are you talking about? Thanks for what you do, Celtic Canuck. Oh, Celtic Canuck's in the room. Nice. Oh, I love Celtic Canuck's channel. Everybody needs to go over and check out that channel. She's got some of the best content on YouTube. We need receipts, otherwise the supporters will call us conspiracy theorists. Absolutely. And that's what I don't want people to be lumped into the group of conspiracy theorists coming up with some BS out there. Anyway, what I get from the story is the follows. Rumors of a suppressed Globe story about Trudeau are BS, is what this article is saying. There's no evidence that Trudeau was once fired for an affair. There is no gag order. There is no Globe story. Now, the thing is, with a gag order, what you would have is a court document that says, like, the government versus Trudeau, or this individual versus Trudeau. It would be a court order. This stuff would be available. We would be able to, with freedom of information, get this stuff, and it's just not there. Now, there are things, screenshots of court things that people bring up, but they lead nowhere. They lead nowhere. And like, here's an example of it. This is, and I'm not outing anybody tweeting this stuff out, and this is why I'm blocking it off, because I'm not trying to out anybody, and that's not what I'm trying to do here. What I'm trying to do is just give you guys the information. From my perspective, I think this story's BS, and the reason why we need to, concentrate on the stories that are real. That's where I'm at with this. This is a normal. This is normal. A teacher of 15 years, a 15-year-old in 2000. Anyway, they found her. This is the $2.5 million payout that nobody can produce, nobody can get their hands on, nobody knows any real information about. This is not that in this tweet. So that's not what that is. This is a screenshot of this, which is a trial, Vancouver law courts for trial by jury struck off list. It's a notice requiring trial by jury for what? We don't know. Trudeau, Justin Pierre. What's involved in this? Well, you do a bit more digging, you'll find this one: Vancouver law courts, motor vehicle accidents. Oh, does that sound like the kind of thing that's being alleged here? No, and these are the dead ends that you end up with this. But instead of dead ends, you end up with, oh, that was BS. Okay, well, what else do we got? So this whole story ends up with a lot of this like BS. What else have we got? BS, what else have we got? And we keep coming back to that. But here's where it is. It's a bit funny here that there's been so much fear over a Russian disinformation effort in this election. This is an older article, right? So this is talking about the older election. Given that Canadians seemingly perfectly willing to churn out disinformation all on their own. In recent weeks, rumors and innuendo have swirled, suggesting that the Globe and Mail has been working on a hot scoop about Justin Trudeau's departure from West Point Grey Academy, the Vancouver school he worked at in the late 2000s. In his late 20s. What am I reading? Craziness here. It's at that school where Trudeau donned brownface and shockingly racist display. The Academy's 2000 to 2001 yearbook is what broke the story wide open. So this is at the time when the blackface thing came out, and everybody was like, whoa, that's bad. What else has he got? Let's do some more digging. But many have begun peddling a whole other scandal out of Trudeau's time at West Point Grey. Plenty of chatter is just the usual drone on social media. Anti-Trudeau denizens of Twitter and Facebook swapping speculation and untruths. The baseless nonsense, however, has been finding ways to break through. Ottawa-based Frank Magazine, a noted gossip rag, suggested that Trudeau exited from the school may have been due to an affair with a student's mother. So this is how it started, right? So it started with this rag. It's not a real paper. It's like, you can see it. It's a satirical, not bound by the rules of ethics and truth, things like that. So it's one of those stories. And the story is, Justin, you old dog. A lot of the text is missing. I think you can find it on the Wayback Machine, but it's basically a story, a fictional story about Trudeau making his way with one of the moms at the school, and that's how it started. But introduced that info with another account that has it that without any kind of sourcing. So this had no source. When former Liberal Warren Kinsella began teasing on Twitter some big globe scoop that would possibly get to the heart of the story, that in turn only ramped up the wide-eyed online myth-making. That tweet has since been deleted. It doesn't exist anymore. Warren Kinsella got rid of it because it turned out not to be true. I mean, obviously, why else would you delete that tweet? Blogger James DeFiore, one of few people in modern history to be convicted for voting multiple times in Canada federal election, took it into another realm, claiming it was a teenager that Trudeau had slept with. So, and that was the claim that he made on Twitter, unsubstantiated, just like boop, willy-nilly threw that claim out. And this is where the rumor mill starts, right? This is how these things go. Anyway, I can go on about this forever, but long story short, the Conservatives got wind of this and they wanted to run it as like an October surprise kind of thing. And they had a press release, to which the press release is no longer there. If you go on to their website, they've gotten rid of it because they don't stand by it. But the press release was here, and it says, "Why did Justin Trudeau leave his teaching job at West Point and Grey Academy?" Trudeau's story has changed at least 4 times since 2001, after media reports revealed that Justin Trudeau wore blackface during an event at West Point Grey Academy. Canadians have been asking exactly what Justin Trudeau why he's left his teaching job at the school. The understandable why people have questions. After all, Trudeau's story has changed 4 times since 2001. Now, this was deleted later off the Conservatives' website, as you saw. It doesn't exist anymore because it was innuendo, and they even opened up a West Point Grey Academy scandal.ca. And this is you got to understand, this is how behind the scenes they work in politics. As soon as they think a scandal comes up, they just grab that URL and get it. But it was actually registered to the Conservatives, this URL. So, but they never ever ended up putting anything on it. And the Buffalo Chronicle website wrote their piece about it. This internet, stuff. The Globe and Mail article never got published. No journalist has ever touched this with any credibility, and because for good reason. There's no evidence. There's no evidence to suggest that it is true. Now, some people are saying that because there's no evidence to suggest that it's true, that maybe there's, inversely, they didn't prove that it isn't true. From all my digging, all that I've turned up on it is that there's no validity to it at all. And so, judging by that, it brings me to the point to say, I don't think that this even happened. I'm willing to guess that this probably didn't even happen. There was a conflict between Trudeau and the faculty of the school, and it turns out that it was actually, and this is corroborated, it turns out that there was a student who was writing, who apparently had a problem with the uniform code enforcement at the school. So there was teachers were enforcing the code, like tucking in their shirts or something like that, with males, but weren't enforcing the short skirts, knee distance on that with the girls. And so the kid had a problem with that. He was apparently encouraged by Trudeau at the time to write an article in the school paper, in which he did, and then the faculty were upset with that, had an argument with Trudeau, and Trudeau actually argued for free speech on this. And that's, for once, he was actually arguing for free speech. He put his job on the line at that point. Evidently, this is what the corroborating witnesses have all said, is that he was let go. It was a mutual let go because he was not going to give up on this. He didn't want to take the reprimand, and they were like, well, they were upset with him over this article that was written that was railing on the faculty, which actually has kind of a creepy connotation to it, seeing that the faculty weren't policing girls having short, like, skirts that were too short. But anyway, this is as far as I got with the story. It doesn't seem like a real story, in my opinion. It seems like a bunch of junk, and with Pierre Poilievre bringing it up at the House of Commons doesn't give the best look on that, because again, people are saying that, well, because Pierre said it, it's got to have some validity. Well, not necessarily, and I don't believe that is absolutely the case. But what I do think is that this is a giant distraction, and it was a gift to Trudeau that half the week we weren't talking about the Chinese interference with our government. And that's something that we should be talking about. They should be focusing on Jagmeet Singh and his coalition with the Trudeau government, and the fact that he refuses, even if the rapporteur doesn't step down as he requested and they voted on and it passed. And here we are. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about what happened in Trudeau's teaching career that didn't work out, his failed teaching career. Instead of, which is like slim, not going to go anywhere story, instead of talking about the thing that is definitely true. We have leakers from CSIS attesting to this, and this is what we should be talking about. I really absolutely agree with that. Now, this being said, I was going to get into a whole bunch of other stories. Sorry for running long with that one, but I have some guests that I want to bring in, but I will give you the speech today that Pierre Poilievre gave. I believe he was in Manitoba. That's correct. So he went to a conservative rally in Manitoba, and he was talking there. And this will give me a perfect opportunity to try to get the guys into the stream and get it all set up. So you guys can watch this as we set this up, and well, enjoy.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, the government is broke, and everything feels broken. Trudeau is out of touch, Canadians are out of money, and the crime is out of control. Recently, he introduced a new inflationary budget with $60 billion more gas poured on the inflationary fire. His own minister admitted that deficit spending causes inflation. And then 2 weeks later, what did she do? Added $60 billion, or $4,200 per family, in additional inflationary spending. And since that budget, inflation is back on the rise after he and his government promised that inflation was only going to drop. And now he wants a 61 cent a litre carbon tax. He's imposed a tax of 14 cents on gas, which drives up the cost of heating and groceries as well. Now he wants to raise it from 14 cents to 61 cents a litre. What is that going to do to our grocery bills when you hit farmers with a 61 cent a litre tax on the diesel they use to produce our food, or the truckers that ship our food? Everything is going to become more expensive. No wonder 1 in 5 Canadians are skipping meals, and 1.5 million going to food banks because they can't afford the price of food. Some of them are asking for help with medical assistance and dying, not because they're sick, but because they're hungry after 8 years of Justin Trudeau. Meanwhile, housing costs have doubled. The cost of monthly rent has doubled. The cost of a monthly mortgage has doubled. And the cost of a needed down payment for an average house has doubled. Double trouble after 8 years of Justin Trudeau. Crime, chaos, drugs and disorder have become more common in our streets after Trudeau brought in catch and release, allowing the same tiny minority of violent reoffenders to go free again and again and again. Instead of helping people get off drugs, Trudeau gives out heroin-grade opioids for free, which addicts then can sell to children in order to buy even stronger drugs. And that is why, under Justin Trudeau, the number of people who die every year of overdoses has tripled. We need to follow the facts, and the facts show that this approach has failed. To distract, he divides. He attacks our people, calls them names, and tries to censor what people see and say. Enough. It's time to turn the hurt that he has caused into the hope that Canadians need. And Conservatives will do that by making Canada work for the people who do the work. We're going to bring home lower prices by getting rid of the inflationary carbon tax and balancing the budget to bring down inflation and interest rates. We're going to bring home powerful paychecks by lowering income taxes to reward work, by removing gatekeepers so that we can build more hydroelectric dams, more pipelines, more natural resource projects to bring home those jobs here to this country. We're going to remove gatekeepers with a blue seal test that will allow our brilliant immigrants to prove that they are qualified to work in professions for which they are trained, so that we can get the 20,000 immigrant doctors and 32,000 immigrant nurses serving patients in our hospitals here in Canada. We're going to bring homes people can afford by removing the government gatekeepers. Municipal bureaucracies block home construction, which means we have the fewest houses per capita on planet Earth. Fewest houses per capita in the G7, even though we have the most land to build on. Why is it the Americans, with 10 times more people to house on a smaller landmass, have house prices that are barely half of what ours are, even when you adjust for the exchange rate? Why is it that that Vancouver is the 3rd most and Toronto the 10th most expensive housing market in the world? Worse than Manhattan, worse than Singapore, worse than London. Why? Because government gatekeepers drive up the cost by making us the 2nd slowest place to get a building permit. We need to speed up building permits by linking the amount of federal money that cities get to the number of houses they permit to be built. I will require large cities to permit 15% more housing construction per year in order to get federal infrastructure money. If they exceed that goal, I'll give them a building bonus. I'll require every federally funded transit station to have high-density housing around and even on top, and I'll sell off 15% of the 37,000 federal buildings to convert it into housing so we can bring homes our young people can afford. We'll end the crime and chaos by ending catch and release, require the small number of repeat violent offenders stay behind bars till their sentence is complete rather than being released the same day they are arrested. And we'll take the money away from the plan that Trudeau has of giving out tax-funded narcotics. We'll put that money instead into treatment, detox, and rehabilitation so we can bring home our loved ones drug-free. Finally, we'll bring home our freedoms again by getting rid of censorship so that people can express themselves free from woke political correctness or government control. Really, it's common sense. The common sense of the common people, united for our common home. Your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home. Thank you.
Good speech by Pierre Poilievre at the Manitoba rally for the Conservative Party. We'll see how they do in this by-election and how they bring it home, as he's saying, bring it home. But hey, while we're bringing stuff in, why don't we bring in a couple of great gentlemen that are good friends of mine. And I love having conversations. I always end up having these conversations, most of it in private and not recording it. And I thought, why not just have a panel? We'll do it live, and then we'll have some of this more candid kind of conversation that I normally do, like I said, in private, but just do it live. So why don't we bring these two guys in tonight? We have Vesper D and we have Marty up north. Hey guys, how are we?
We are doing
good,
fantastic.
Man.
Yeah,
we're doing good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me tonight in this, and I had to do this like mad dash quick, like get you guys in here while the video is playing. It's the first time I've ever had to do it on like behind the scenes, so mad dash so quick. And thanks for bearing with me while I put that out there, audience, everybody who's watching in. But hey, okay.
Can I finally crack this bad boy? I don't know how to get it into your image here.
Oh yeah, I've got everything zoomed up way too much. Maybe I can zoom you back a little bit.
I've been waiting all night for a beer.
Yeah, crack that open. I'm having myself a drink. It's yeah. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what I'm having on YouTube. No, I'm just having a vodka soda. I'm having some just the regular old. Laying off the calories. That's what I've been doing. It's all those.
Yeah, well, those seltzers are great for that. But I like my beer, so I'm having a Big Rock beer. I'm having a Wayfinder. So
fair enough.
There we go.
Fair enough. No Bud Lights. I see. In there.
No. So I know we're gonna jump into this, but when was that interview? Was Pierre was in Manitoba today?
That was today. Yeah.
Or yesterday?
That was today.
Yeah. So he's there. this is part of the by-election? Like he's just showing some support. Is that what he's doing?
Yeah. So I showed another question that they had earlier, and he was addressing. They asked about Maxime Bernier because he's running in Portage, and that's Candice Bergen's old stomping ground. That's where she was from, and. Yeah, so Maxime Bernier is going for that. We'll see how it goes.
Well, but he's going there for a good reason. It is the riding that got him or got his party the most seat or the most votes in 2019. So in 2021, in that election, they garnered 20% of the vote, which was the highest percentage in any riding. So he picked that one on purpose. I mean, I'm no fan of Max. I think Max is running is perpetually and really doesn't even have any intention of ever winning. But if you look at the polls currently, I go to the same organization that I was using when you and I were talking about the Alberta election. I go to 338 Canada, and then if you zoom in on Portage Lisker, whatever, or is it Lisker?
I believe
Portage,
so. Yeah, I had it up.
Yeah. It's funny because right now it does look like there's some vote splitting going on, but Max is actually stealing away from the Liberals, which a lot of people say that. I mean, Max's behavior on the campaign trail of him constantly attacking Poilievre makes him look like controlled opposition to, I think he is a Liberal in sheep's clothing some days. But anyway, I don't think that's our topic for tonight, but you brought it up.
Well, okay. So part of that was a video that I put out because he started the abortion debate that nobody wants to have except Trudeau. Now, Trudeau brought up the abortion debate because he's in hot water over China. Right? Like,
well, I was listening to you just before this. I mean, Trudeau, Trudeau's rapporteur distraction this week was something else. He didn't want the high school thing to be a distraction, but he gladly took it. It is a distraction. I mean, yeah, Trudeau has a drawer full of distractions, and abortion is a common one. I mean, whenever he's in hot water, bring up the abortion, the guns, or what else,
Yeah, exactly. And when the guns came up this week too, with the National Day, it was like some day of gun violence.
He's in hot water because normally, I mean, he loves this week. He loves Pride Week. I mean, God, he loves to go out there and parade during Pride Week. And rather than be out there on Pride Week, he's actually falling back on the gun and other things. So he's in hot water because he can't even distract with pride. He has to distract with everything he has in his arsenal. No pun intended, speaking of guns.
Well, speaking of Pride Week, so I put it out on Twitter. This
Pride Month now.
Oh, yeah, Pride Month now, yeah. So it's the whole month of June. Get ready for it. All your favorite corporations out there are just going to be shoving this down your throat, whether you like it or not. Is gay French fries and gay beers and gay everything. Everything's gayed up these days. But Vesper, I wanted to ask you, because like you do branding. Like, what is it with these corporations? Why do they go down this road of? So there are entire swaths of the country that don't agree with pride and that stuff. And then there's other people. There's like a huge part of the country that, okay, whatever, you're gay, who cares? Like, do your thing. Why do we all have to know about it for a whole month, every day? And it's got to be like shoved at us. But it seems like the corporate thing is like they're taking their brands and they're attaching this social justice crap to it. Where do they get off doing that?
Well, first, I just want to, before I jump into that, I'd like to first say hi to you and Marty. I've been strangely silent for most of the day because we've had wildfires everywhere. Right. So I've been preserving my oxygen. So, to answer your question, honestly, for me, how do I put this without sounding too, I don't know, cocky? I suppose the way I would say it is that so when I was in high school, we had a really good teacher, taught us Latin. And Latin for me there's so many cool Latin sayings that I'm sure you guys have heard in your lives. There's this one that's really awkward, always made me laugh, and I put it to memory. It's "Adnesi mi fili quantila Prudentia mundus ragatur. And it's so funny, the answer. It's, do you know, oh my son, with how little wisdom the world is governed?
I like that. I like that.
I'll share it with you later. So look, clearly there is a agenda. These companies are bleeding millions of dollars. I refuse to believe that the people that had built this up over the last decade to billions of dollars don't understand that there's a subset of the population, and I think they've calculated for it. They recognize that the brand has to morph. So in their minds, the brand has been a caterpillar, but the brand is ready to become the butterfly. Mm-hmm. And they believe, and they rightfully understand, just like any rebranding in even when it has nothing to do with controversial stuff, there is this power struggle between the old and the new, right? So when someone wants to rebrand, they do have a loyal base of clients that have gotten used to that look. Now, the consensus behind all this is that we're changing so that we should accept more people, and we should be tolerant of other people, so long as there's no violence. You should tolerate, and not only tolerate, but like encourage people to be themselves, so to speak. I think where it becomes cumbersome is when corporate dollars in the billions are behind this move, and it becomes divisive. So I think these companies know all this stuff is divisive, and it's, in a way, it creates this underdog effect. Like, we're there for the underdog. And, in many ways, they really are. They've been marginalized for the majority of history. But the way it's kind of being used now, it's more like the stuff that Trudeau is really good at, which is wedging people against each other. Mm. Like, it's not done. It's not done in an honest way. It's done like it's kind of done the way he did it with like, the whole last 3 years that we went through. Like, if you don't do this, you don't care about people. You're apathetic. You have no feelings.
Yeah, you're a bad guy.
Well, yeah, well, and I agree, but I also I don't think it fully answers the question. I mean, yeah. What? Let's pick a brand. Let's take the NHL, for instance. Because we just finished the hockey season, and the NHL went down that pride path, and I couldn't it's not the NHL is not losing an audience and did not need to attract new customers. I mean, it already has everybody. The stadium is full with 18,000 people. So why the rebranding? I understand some of the rebranding that occurred, let's say 20 years ago, when advertisers started focusing on women because they realized women had a strong buying power. So they started putting women in advertising. But why are we putting, let's say a marginalized community that's quite small, making it so prominent in advertising? You can't convince me that, let me just finish the thought. Because when I look at, like, for instance, Bud Light, I mean, I really don't understand how a beer thought that alienating 90% of its audience to attract a 2% group made sense. So sorry, Vesper, go ahead. But
well, it's clearly it's not a uni answer, right? So there's no one thing that causes this. This is a result of strategy, planning or misplanning. Maybe overestimating, underestimating. There's a lot of factors that go into this, and so a lot of these companies also make their decisions based on polls and data that they receive, and so on and so forth. It's never just, tomorrow we're gonna wake up and we're gonna make it hillbilly season. Like, they don't wake up in the morning. Yeah, that's what they do.
No, but so I think there are some companies that jump on the bandwagon because they're afraid of missing it or the negative backslash of not doing something. But in the case of, let's say, the NHL or some of the other ones, I do think that some companies, it's more nefarious. When some companies get some funding from the government or whatever, they are obligated then to implement some of this as part of the funding. And
it's not just the NHL. Let's stay on that.
I'm mentioning, yeah.
No, I want to stay within the realm of the NHL to just show how many layers this is. So the NHL is merchandising. NHL is beverages, beer, right? Your favorite thing, beer. Sponsorships, individual sponsorships. So Michael Jordan, let's say, had a deal with Nike. Nike goes completely this way. The NBA, or let's say the NBA goes this way. Then Nike, let's say, goes this way. And now he's there saying, okay, I'm going to go this way. But if I don't go this way, then it's going to affect not just Nike, it's going to affect the entire NBA. Yeah. If I, let's say, all these things. So I think we all want like a straight answer. If you want a really straight answer, ultimately, it's companies ride these very divisive topics to create issues or political statements that give way to access to other things. We talked about this in the last conversation with Derek, where I explained that the liberals tie issues. I'm using them as an example. I'm not saying conservatives don't do this. I'm saying they tie things, Marty, like a spider ties their web, so that if one part of the web shakes, the other parts shake too. So they're not just one thing. They're trying to tie everything to make the excuse like, oh, wait a minute, you hate this, and then this starts to vibrate on this side.
But at the end of the day, will always come. I mean, it still doesn't answer my question fully, or doesn't satisfy me fully as an answer, because to me, the LGBTQ pride community is still, to me, maybe I'm wrong, but it's like a 5 to maximum 10% of the population that seems to be getting way too much attention from the media, from industry, from businesses, and from government. So I mean, I find the whole thing fascinating. I really do.
I mean, look, we could make the argument, Clyde. I'm sorry if I just have to spit this in. I could tell Clyde has something he wants to say.
No, but I don't want to cut you off. You know, like I do want to say something, but I want the flow of the conversation to work. So like, I have something that I'd like to mention, but I'll get there.
What I'm trying to say is this: there are clearly global organizations that have their agendas, and they're gonna pay off whoever they want to pay off or withhold funding if they don't toe the line that they need. That's clear. That's the top. Okay, investment agencies, whatever you want to call them. But here's the real thing: the genius in the communication, because Clyde, you wanted to know from the marketing standpoint, what's the strategy here?
Yeah, what is the strategy?
Don't you see billions leaking? Yes. Short term, yes. To build a different model of a world or perception, it's what's that saying? A few bodies are necessary.
Okay, well here's where what I had to say comes in, because this is a really good example. I put this out for Elon Musk. Actually, I asked him. I said, "Hey, Elon Musk, do I need a VPN for June Pride Month?" Because Mercedes-Benz, BMW, Cisco, you look over at their Mercedes-Benz Middle East division, or BMW Middle East division, Cisco, Lenovo, Bethesda, the list goes on. If you look over at these companies in their Middle East division, they're really not trying to change the world there. Why are they trying to change the world so much here?
It depends. Let's clarify, because I'm from the Middle East.
Yeah, and that's a great person to ask.
There are, like, for example, countries like Lebanon. I'm not saying that they're not conservative, but they're a little bit more open, like Europeanized, than, let's say, some other countries. Not that they're not advanced, but their values are still, very deeply entrenched in conservative views on things. So you're right to have pointed this out. Why are you doing it here? And I honestly think it's really just because, quite frankly, the ideology that has permeated Canada, because, I mean, what is it? It's Christianity. Christianity is all about forgiveness, not judging one another, not condemning one another, even though the Catholic Church did a ton of that for 200 years, 300 years. The point is that the ideology of Western civilization is not, I would say, and I'm not trying to be careful saying it, I'm trying to find a good word for saying it. It was guided by Christian values and principle that have been abused throughout the years, right, by leaders. But for the most part, in the New Testament anyways, it's going to talk about forgiveness, that we're all sinners, that we shouldn't judge anyone. So it creates this kind of level playing field for everybody. And so people that are nefarious see this opportunity, and they seize upon the goodwill of people who are assuming that this is what's being communicated to them about, and they take advantage of them. I mean, my God, even in the Bible, St. Paul tells people that there are wolves in sheep's clothing. Like that term came because Paul said that. These are wolves in sheep's clothing. So that concept is not foreign, to people that are conservative or Christian or religious. Islamic people believe that as well, that there are people that are not what they appear. And I think people take advantage of them. I think the blowback in the Middle East.
Sorry, Vesper, but I think you're rambling right now. Like seriously, like what's I mean, are we saying that there are these evil forces at work that are trying to change our society in a nefarious for evil reasons? Like, is that what's going on?
Well, are we talking in a moral sense, or are we talking?
No, I mean with everything that's going on lately, maybe we should change.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say what this sounds like to me is like a browbeat, and it's a good way for people to come in and browbeat people who are already sensible and nice anyway. So like you look around Canada and the general consensus is, yeah, you want to be gay, who cares? Whatever, do your thing. And then these corporations come in and they're like, but you're not accepting everything about it, and you need to do it even more. And it's like, I've done it enough, man. I'm happy that people are just being people and they're doing their life the way they want to do it.
Yeah, no,
I think that's I'm with you on that one, Clyde. I think I'm there too. Like we were doing our bid at first, and years ago, I would have agreed, okay, maybe I have a little, what's the word? Maybe I'm not as accepting of others, and I'm a little privileged. And so I expand my horizons and be more welcoming and do these things. But to me, it seems to have gone too far. But I'm wondering what's to be gained. Like, that thing you showed, like, what does Mercedes have to gain by doing this in North America, but not doing it in another part of the world? So
now I heard a really interesting theory recently, and this one I didn't consider, and somebody brought this up to me. He said, you know what I think's happening? I think the CEOs and the staff of these organizations, they're shorting the stocks, and they're basically robbing money of their shareholders over this woke stuff because they know it'll fly.
God, that would be, yeah.
And they can short against it, and they know they can time the market because they're the ones doing it, and it's a way of basically pulling money out from the shareholders and putting it right in their pockets before they know their inevitability of losing their jobs, because like Target, for example, you think that's going to survive another 5 years of being a brick and mortar? Like, a lot of these businesses are on their way out anyway, and it's like, why wouldn't they just short it? They know they're going to be out of job, make a bunch of money.
I mean, look, it is a plausible idea that I guess you have to consider. Like, if you haven't traveled to these other countries, like Saudi Arabia, some parts of the Middle East, dude, like you can't open a magazine. Everything is literally redacted.
Yeah.
Everything is redacted. When you come from a culture like that, where like, I can't even see her legs. You understand? I can't see, let's say, parts of her shoulder. This has been on for years. Now, again, I didn't say that Canadians should just take it all. I'm saying I'm giving you a legitimate opinion about why here it's pushed so hard, and why there it's you do that, and like you're in deep trouble.
Yeah,
right. Like
that's kind of what I remember. I think it's more of like the illustration there, because like I'm saying, we all know what'll happen if you push that in Saudi Arabia. I mean, like, we all know it's not going to be good. They're not going to accept it, and that's just weird. The way it is. But it's shut down immediately.
But it's weird though, right? Because then you look at some of the funding for some of these organizations pushing this, and they're getting money from Saudi Arabia. So it's like the weirdest thing, right?
I don't understand.
In here, you don't.
Yeah, neither do I.
in here, you don't do. Well, there is an answer: greed. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about greed. It's not them. It's a certain type of person that's just greedy, powerful, and they get to play the system. So, like, I watch sometimes Jimmy Dore, and he always pulls his video up of Bill Gates after the fact, after he made all his money, saying, it's not until a certain point we learned that this thing was for the elderly. And Jimmy Dore's like, now you say it after you pulled all your cash out?
That's brutal.
So I I think we all know what the answer is. It's the problem is anything we say is going to sound ultra conspiratorial, and there's just some people that are not willing to hear it because it's scary, man. Who wants to live in a world that you find out elite, very wealthy people have influence?
Yeah. Well,
yeah, and that I agree with. I mean, I used to not believe in conspiracies because I've always said they're too hard to pull off. But I think nowadays I'm leaning towards the fact that there are some very powerful groups and men and people at work that are trying to control. And yeah, I would say my conclusion is that Canada and the US, we're easier to control than some other regions, and we're being groomed, we're being prepared for something. I know there's something going on. I mean, that's yes, I do. It's not a coincidence, like back to the original question. I mean, Bud Light is not suddenly trying to appeal to a certain small segment of the population to go get an extra $10 million a year. It's a bigger plan, and I don't know what that bigger plan is, and I'm just nervous about that bigger plan. So yeah, I think we beat this one to death.
Yeah, no, obviously.
Well, I mean, look,
but I wanted to segue this in because we're talking about like brands losing their loyalty into the idea of, well, we had Andrew Scheer even jump up and in the House of Parliament talking about the Liberal government losing their loyalty and the Liberal Party themselves. There's the provincial Liberals across Canada are getting rid of the Liberal moniker. They're actually like rebranding at this point. Apparently this is happening. Saskatchewan Liberals, they've just ditched the Liberal name. They're the no-name party at the moment, and they're trying to appeal to a base in saying that we're not that guy in the Prime Minister's office. We have nothing to do with that, and that's not what we stand for. So, like, where do we go with these politicians?
Even Chrystia Freeland the other day wasn't wearing a red dress. I was like, whoa, what's going on here? So, yeah. No, actually, what you're saying, I've seen evidence of that in small, we saw it in campaign signs, for instance. Even in the last election, there were Liberals that had sort of a plain red sign that already were distancing themselves from Trudeau 2 years ago. So I'm not surprised that they're doing it for more and more these days. I'm not.
Yeah, it's happening everywhere. Apparently, even the BC Liberals as well. There's, yeah. Well, you see, like in BC, we didn't have a real big conservative movement, I guess. They're making themselves known now. And I've been getting in touch with some of the people of that in that party, and they're seizing the opportunity because the branding's finished. And after this election in Alberta, the NDP, and then what Jagmeet Singh's been doing in Ottawa, it's really damaged their party as well as what they've been doing in BC. We in BC know.
Well, actually, it is a great segue. What you're talking about, It does link to businesses. Some businesses are going to push this agenda too far, and it's going to backfire on them. And I often say that about the Liberals. I think the Liberals, I am surprised by the Liberals. We spoke about this. When Trudeau first got elected in 2015, I thought, holy shit, man, we're going to have 20 years of him because he had all the right attributes, characteristics, charms, family name, and stuff like that. And I quite honestly think that we're seeing absolute power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, or whatever the expression is. And he's gone too far with it. And ultimately, luckily something always happens to bring things back into balance. And I think, Trudeau has pushed his luck way too far, and he's going to destroy the party. But I'm surprised that the party's letting it happen. I mean, I'm still surprised the party hasn't punted him, a year ago, 6 months ago.
No, are they the opposite, the exact opposite? They're pulling people out of retirement, and they're using them to discredit their entire life's work in order to get this guy out of trouble that he's in.
Listen, they brought Hillary Clinton out at their convention last month. They brought Jean Chrétien out. Who else did they bring out? They were bringing out dinosaurs who had Chrétien destroyed the last Liberal Party, and that's who they're bringing out on stage for this one.
Look, I posted a tweet on almost a month ago. Christian Leprecht which is like one of the best policy educators in Canada. I think he even graduated from the Royal Military College as a professor. And remember that video I shared? He said it's what is he quoted? I'm just looking at it now. It is also why people are resisting a foreign agent registry, because the number of Canadian elites that would get ensnarled in such a registry. We need to decide if we're standing with the tyrants or we standing with Canadian democracy. I think
he's a collegiate scholar. He's not just some nobody. He was brought in, for the committee.
So it's like weird. If this guy goes, maybe he like it. It's weird, right? It's like he's this alpha that's connected to everything, and that if you touch him or remove him, it exposes the whole thing. And so maybe no one dares to do anything because they're like, our political career will be completely annihilated.
Well, I'm absolutely astonished by the actions of Paul Rouleau, the actions of David Johnston. Like, are you kidding? Like Marty and I, we talked about this several times now. It's just the mere appearance of conflict of interest that should be enough for someone to recuse themselves of a position. I mean, this happens in the corporate world. If it looks like there might be a conflict of interest, you walk away.
They're doubling down on him. I mean, did you see lobster face there, Bill Blair in the House of Commons? I think it was yesterday or today, like literally coming to the defense of David Johnston and reading a statement like, you know, he gave 50 years of his career doing this, and he read it off. It's like,
yeah, why is he ruining it? Why is he ruining that reputation? It's absolutely destroying it.
And now he just, what's the ad agency? He hired an agency to try and improve his image and everything else.
Navigator. And by
Navigator,
the way,
yeah.
By the way, that's
Johnston did.
By the way, that's hold on. By the way,
that's a story. I want to get into that.
Hold on, Marty. That's the same company that helped the NHL with their debacle.
And it's also the same company that had a guy during the Freedom Convoy walking around with a Confederate flag. So
Do we know that?
I don't know about that. I don't know.
No. It was brought out. That was brought out about 6 months ago, and then they put out a statement saying that they were going to sue. I can't remember, Rebel or whoever it was. The suit went away when the whole story went away because, you know, they threatened these suits, but it's like, go ahead, threaten the suit. But then we were going to make, in the disclosure portion of the trial, you're going to have to give us everything, and then we will find out. So a company like
that was Miller, Brendan Miller, from what I remember. He made the accusation while doing cross-examination.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes, that's what it was. And so
Act,
immediately afterwards, they defended them. They threatened a lawsuit, but. I mean, we love lawsuits. Absolutely. Go ahead, because then we will disclose you to no end, right? We will ask for everything under the sky. But back to the premise. Yes, I totally agree. I mean, Trudeau is the linchpin. He's the whatever. And there's a huge organization. And if he goes down, they all go down. But
that's good. That's the whole Laurentian elite.
No, it's good.
but then I want to see it.
Or one of the things that happens in is that he will get taken out by the higher up. Somebody will say you're done, and they'll clean house. They'll take a whole bunch of people. So no, yeah, I'm sure that's going on. I mean, the organization, the Liberal organization, is hanging on to dear life because they all go down.
Wow. By the way, just so that we're also clear, and we're talking like a business strategy, marketing point of view now. I'm not talking any personal attacks against Trudeau or anything. He has become so synonymous to that brand. To decouple those two is going to take many, many, many years. Trust me, as a professional, this is not a 5-year thing. This is not a 10-year thing. This could follow whoever, if there even is a Liberal government after this anymore. This is going to follow them for like we remember Wilfrid Laurier. Hey,
right. I like what you're saying. I mean, if you ask me what the Liberal brand was in 2012, it didn't have some would have said Chrétien, some would have said Trudeau Senior. But then when we elected a second Trudeau, suddenly the name Trudeau became really
synonymous, right?
Synonymous with the liberal brand. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, essentially, he's left shit stains on the brand, and they're always going to be his. And he's that's not going to get wiped away by just him obfuscating and saying eminent, respectable, and all these words. None of this is going to do anything.
No, his words are hollow and empty, though. Like every time he speaks, nobody, everyone's seeing right past the words that he's saying, and often he's like this ultimate gaslighting of saying things like, "Oh, democracies around the world are backsliding," while he's like backsliding our democracy. It's outrageous, like what he's doing in this country. And
but, the most telling thing was Johnson's statement this week. Remember, Clyde, you reported on it. Remember when they asked him, like, hey, why didn't you step down? And he wrote a personal letter, like why he wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, Real Andy Lee on Twitter put it out there, and I was reading it in one of my videos. But yeah, he basically said, you know, I have a job to do. I was assigned by the government, so I won't step down. Like that's
yeah. I don't care. I don't care what the House of Commons says.
Well, he said, I respect what they have to say, and I'll take their input to consideration. It's like, what is the House of Commons if it can't call the shots? Like, are we really?
Didn't he go further and say, I don't work for the House of Commons, I work for the government?
Yeah. And it's like, well, what is the government? Is the government the executive branch alone? Like, where do we stand in our parliamentary democracy? Is that how it works here in Canada, where the executive gets to call all the shots?
But it's funny, right? Because he's called impartial. I work for Trudeau, but that's not impartial.
I didn't even nail that angle even at all. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Say that again, Vesper. Say that again.
He said, I don't take, my mandate is from the government, basically Trudeau. I'm like, but aren't you supposed to be impartial and not be getting a mandate from the guy you're investigating?
Yeah, if the government isn't the parliament and he's saying the government is the executive branch, well, that's a conflict right there. That's unbelievable. Like the fact that this is flying and people are just not like freaking out, and the media is actually pretty upset about this. This is what I was also reporting on. Not so much the Trudeau thing, but the fact that we're not getting an investigation, and the fact that they're trying to blame whistleblowers and journalists over this. Even the Toronto Star has been, who's like famously left, and they're even railing against this whole concept of going after journalists, going after whistleblowers instead of seeking out the truth. And good on them for putting down their bias in this circumstance to step away from, you know, the Trudeau bandwagon and seek after the truth. This is important. This is going after their trade.
Yeah. So let's segue from this into something else. So is Trudeau going to hang himself, or is Pierre going to take him down? What's going on there? Like, I mean,
that's a good question.
And you know, because I'm looking at what's happening in this week in the House of Commons. Well, and not just this week, and every week, Trudeau keeps stumbling, and every time he does, the Conservatives have an opportunity, but they miss the opportunities all the time. So this was another example this week. I think that Pierre thought he was being clever in the House of Commons with his comments about, you know, Trudeau as a school teacher, but I think that backfired on him.
Yeah. Sent everybody on a wild goose chase, and then they all started talking about that. On a wild goose chase,
and once again, Trudeau walks away. So what's our and I know, Vesper, you have an opinion on this one, or you're of the opinion, because I'll be honest, I thought that there was some truth to the high school story. Now I don't talk about it. I've never tried to nail Trudeau on it. I mean, you know, once in a while, I mean, I poke fun at Trudeau all the time, and I'd love nothing more to take him down.
So I dug, and it just looks like BS to me. Like when I
use the black face against him all the time. That's fine, but I don't see anything else that can be used against him there. And you said you dug on this one?
I dug on this one, and I found nothing. Not only did I find nothing, I found places where every chance it was always like a way out of it. It wasn't what was being said. It's like somebody made something up. This is the truth. Somebody made something up here. This is the truth. This went from this to that at this point. And that's where it came for that. And that, like I said, this is just it's a distraction at this point. We're all talking about that when that's not going to nail him. You're not going to nail him with innuendo. And even the conservatives, when they do talk about it, they don't want to talk about it in form of allegation, because that's making an allegation. They'll talk about it in innuendo. And then it's not, and then everybody says, well, he didn't say that. He wasn't implying that. Well, what was he implying? I mean, really, at the end of the day, I mean, the best thing he could come back with is what I was saying was Trudeau doesn't live up to his obligations and he didn't stay his full semester. And here he is in government not living up to his obligations. Sure, if that's the angle you want to play, go play with that. But it all seems like innuendo to me. It seems like a wild goose chase, and everybody is talking about it when they're not talking about China.
Right.
Sorry if I just summed that one up.
No. I mean, I accept that. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. But here we are. We're like Jagmeet Singh is putting forward these bogus motions that are just toothless, right? So he puts forward a motion, I think it was Monday. Let's force the government to get let's force the rapporteur, David Johnson, to step down and force for a public inquiry. Well, they all voted for it. The Liberals didn't, obviously, and it passed.
It passed.
And then nothing.
I was thinking about what, Marty, you were saying. I just want to take one step back just to answer something that you said, Marty, that I had to like really put it together in my head.
Go for it.
You were saying, is he going to hang himself, or is Pierre going to take him out? And in a way, this is the Bud Light effect. And again, I'm speaking.
No, this is cool.
I'm speaking strictly from a marketing and strategy point of view. Okay, so you make a mistake. You believed in your mistake. Then there's blowback, and you say, this one, they're gonna get over it in a week, and it keeps getting bigger. Then you make another mistake. You put out another video, the Clydesdale super American flying to the moon.
Yeah, that was stupid.
Video.
That was stupid of them.
And that was so patently dumb that it backfires even more. Wait, it backfires even more. Then they say, all right, we're going to start giving beer away for free. And that backfires even more. Yeah. And it's like this one businessman once, Marty, told me, when you make a big mistake, you should just stop. Don't do anything. Stop. And why? Because he said it's like holding a hot potato for the first time, right? Your first grip is really good, but then you go, ow, and you start fumbling the potato, and then more than likely it's going to fall on the floor. So in my mind, the decision, the things he did and is continuing to do with Johnston and all that, it's him inevitably going to trash his own brand and himself. I don't think Pierre, in fact, I'll say this, and I know I'm a conservative about this, and I've told this before. I don't think as much that Pierre is beating him as much as Pierre is defeating him. Trudeau's defeating himself, right? It's a mixture of both. It's not like this other person just completely took over. Trudeau's really helping Pierre a lot.
You're answering the question, and I agree with you. But but part of me says Trudeau's been fumbling that potato for about 4 years now, and and somebody, while he's fumbling, somebody could help and push him along the way. But
people keep catching him.
So, but he keeps catching it, and the potato hasn't dropped on the floor, because on the guys who could push him have been, who have we had? We had Andrew Scheer, and now we have Poilievre, and we have guys. So I'd like to see a combination of both. I don't think so. What I guess I'm saying is he's not easily hanging himself, and nobody's pushing him off the chair. So and I'd rather wage, let him try to keep hanging himself. But in the meantime, I'd like to have somebody strong. And I think leader after leader on the conservative side has been missing opportunities. And I had a lot of faith in Poilievre that he was going to be the guy who came along. And as soon as Trudeau would make a small mistake, he would just capitalize on those mistakes. And Poilievre seems to be, again, is it lack of skills on the conservative side, or is it just that Trudeau is surrounded by so many good guys who can protect him? So I think it's all of those.
It's more
things, right?
dynamic than that, though, because we don't have a two-party system. We have a three-party system,
Right.
and we have a coalition going on right now. The not so much of a coalition that has 27 talking points that do stuff for the NDP, but not really do anything for the NDP because people only voted for them because they wanted to give the Liberals a minority government. And I explain this to a lot of people a lot. I say, there's two types of NDP voters. There's the people who believe in the brand, that believe in the message, and then there's people who vote NDP because they're sick of the Liberals and they don't want to vote Conservative because of whatever anti-branding that they've been subjected to. They're primed to never vote for the Conservatives. So what they're doing is they're punishing the Liberals that they like, but they're like, I don't want you to have so much power. And what happened in the last election with Jagmeet Singh getting as much of power that he's got, he's using that to prop Justin Trudeau up so that he can hang on. And I know a lot of people keep saying like, oh, he's doing it for his pension. Dude, the amount of embezzlement and stuff that these politicians do and the stuff that they're making behind the scenes, they're making way more money than that pension's ever going to be worth anyway. I don't think he cares about the pension. So he's got the money. Don't worry. He's got the money.
Yeah.
It's about something else.
But it's worth noting also, Clyde and Marty, that the Conservatives are also, they have their own people that like recommend what the talking points are and what he should attack. So all of us could be feeling like our freedom of speech is being eroded. But his people are saying our polls show that, dairy farmers are not able to produce a lot of dairy. So focus on that. And so I think there are times where we're
Dairy
all
lobby
aligned.
is very strong.
I know what you're saying. We forget that it's not Pierre versus Justin. It's a huge conservative organization versus a huge liberal organization. Yeah.
Precisely. And
the liberal organization is massive. It's huge. It's not only it's backed by people at the UN and people elsewhere, and it's supported by the NDP. So the liberals in this country right now are a formidable foe. They are hard. And
that's why I said,
sorry, and that's why I said
before you segue,
I was scared shitless when Trudeau got elected, because at first I thought, knowing all of this, I thought, oh my God, we're in for 30 years of the Trudeau. So thank God Trudeau himself personally is an idiot.
Yeah, well, you got that. So a lot of this polling that goes on, we know that they have like all these independent polls. They've got the ones that the one you use, the 338, that I've been using that
aggregator
one since, and they're really good at it. There's bias polling, and then there's non-bias. Is there government polling? Is there like?
Well, there's so much polling, but what's your question? What are you aiming towards on polling?
Is there any sort of body that's supposed to be independent? Is there supposed to be something that's like impartial? It's all just basically, put together by this or that? I know like in the US they like to use the Rasmussen polling, and that's supposed to be the most reliable. Do we have an equivalent to that in Canada, or is it all just...
Well, in some, like here in Alberta, there's an individual pollster, a lady named Janet Brown, and everybody always says Janet is an old-fashioned pollster who gets on the phone herself and talks to, 1,000 people a week and has tricks for gathering information. But otherwise, is there do pollsters register with the Ethical Pollsters of America organization? No, they're there's pollsters that are for hire that'll give you the answers you want, and CTV's a pollster. So
yeah. Well, I know they report on the ones that they go favorably for the coverage that they want to do, because you look on their website, they'll have a bunch of polls, and then they'll like a bunch of them will go the wrong way for their coverage. Yeah, and then they'll report.
Well, we saw that here in Alberta during the election. I mean, suddenly one day we had all these polls that that flipped, and then they flipped right back, and it was just a big concerted effort. One thing I want to say about polls, I learned something interesting last week. I was talking to somebody on the subject. Polls, some pollsters haven't modernized yet. Most people now only have a cell phone, don't have a landline. I have a landline at home, and during the Danielle Smith during the Alberta election, I must have been polled about 6 times over the course of 30 days because I have a landline. So I make it, and then I ask people, like, how often have you been polled on your cell phone? And the answer is almost like 0. So there's these kinds of weird dynamics that and so if you're polling and you're always calling people who have landlines, well, people who have landlines tend to be more old fashioned, and you get blah blah blah. So polling has to evolve a bit. Polling hasn't quite caught up to the what century are we in? 21st.
Yeah.
The polls were
I almost get, like, I've been saying this, I've never get polled, but I got polled I want to say a month ago. So I did get polled for the first time in forever. I've always read these polls, and then the funniest part about when like CTV, for example, they use Nanos polls, but then they'll give a link to Nanos, but never the poll. So you never see what the questions were that they asked, and then they'll only give you like how many people were polled, and you got to just take their word for it that the answers are what they are, and just it seems so skewed. I hardly ever trust it.
It's skewed. It's like, I don't poll, but over the years at work, I often help put together surveys to gauge employee morale, let's say, and you can't just do it by saying, how do you feel good? And somebody will say, yes, I feel good, or no, I don't. So you have to ask,
Does my job depend on it?
Yeah, I remember being involved in a poll where I thought, working with somebody professional to help us gauge our employees. And the questions were, different. Like, they're like, do you look forward to going to work? Do you have a friend at work? Do you feel like your boss listens to you, and things like that? And then some questions were reworded 2-3 times, but in a negative and a positive way, so that it, to make sure you answered it twice. And so after answering the question,
the psychological negative or positive bias, right? They want to
exactly. And then the pollsters afterwards have a lot of analysis to do. So
it's funny because I remember last year I posted a Nanos poll, and the guy Nanos that was talking about this was featured on CTV. I don't know if you remember it. The majority of Canadians say this, and then I pulled up the Nanos poll, and it was 1,000 people in Canada.
Yeah,
I'm like, wait, you're using 1,000 people to represent 40 million people.
They always do.
And you're saying the majority of Canada? Like, seriously?
Yeah.
That's your model? Yeah. And it doesn't make sense, because even the demographics that you took aren't indicative of the entire population. But because it's a headline, you think people are go, oh, okay, yay.
And it's the whole concept of lying with statistics. I mean, during the election here in Alberta, the NDP does a poll, and they ask you 3 questions, like, what should be our priority? Increasing taxes, more gun control, or letting in more immigrants? And then it's like, wow, those are 3 shitty options, but you pick one anyways. And then they quickly turn around and go, hey, we polled 1,000 Albertans, and they want us to increase taxes. It's like,
they're very skewed.
Well,
they're very skewed.
It's also a case of wagging the dog. When you know that politicians aren't talking to people, they're just looking at the polls. They're looking at that and trying to govern based on that. Like, this is what listening to Jordan Peterson over the past 2 years, this is what's come up, a theme often, that this is how politicians are actually governing. They're governing by poll. And it's like, well, if they can skew the polls and they can manipulate with the polls, then the governors, the people who are governing the country, they'll govern based on what you want. So it gives the pollsters a particular amount of power, and it gives them the incentive to not be honest.
Well, I mean, I got to run for politics, man. You guys are like, I get asked this question all the time, and then I get into these debates. I got to get on the inside. I got to run. I got to become an MP. I
There
gotta
it is.
become an MP.
There's
I want to
your-
go see how the system works, and then I want to come back on your show every week, and as an MP, and I'm gonna go, holy shit, Clyde, you won't believe what I learned this week. Like, I want to bust it out.
I'm gonna pull a Joe Biden on you and say, Marty, don't do it. It's not worth it.
Oh, I know it's not worth it. I get asked all the time. It's not worth it.
Well, can I share something, Marty, with you that I shared with Clyde?
Sure.
There was this liberal nut job guy who claims to be a specialist that came on like a YouTube thing, and he was like, he pulled up this postcard. I got to send it to you. Do you remember that video? He's like, 96% of people reviewed by StatsCan say that people saw in the first week of the pandemic misinformation. Now that's troubling. That's very troubling. And he's doing all this. So I'm like, I wonder where I could go find this. So I went on StatsCan. I spent the entire day OCDing. I'm like, I'm not going to rest till I find this study. Turns out the study was actually a study on a study.
Yeah.
And then the way that they break, I don't know if you ever looked at StatsCan, how they aggregate all the numbers. It's like all the numbers are like in this very foreign Klingon language. And then there's like 1, 1, 2, 1, 2 for every question. It was 4,000 lines in an Excel spreadsheet. Thankfully, I'm good at Excel. So I aggregated the numbers myself. And if I show people like how, like even Statistics Canada are skewed with their opinions when they report on stuff, because it completely did not represent the data that I calculated through Excel. And you know, you've used Excel, Marty.
Well,
it's just
I remember
algorithms.
this. I remember this because you pointed out that they lumped into the group because it was like, how many times have you seen misinformation or what you think is misinformation on social media was the question. And
right.
And it was like, I always see it. I sometimes see it. I rarely see it, almost never see it, or I've never seen it. And they lumped in everything but never into the have seen
that's what gave 96.
Misinformation online. So like, you're just being honest, like, yeah, I think I have seen it once or twice. Okay, I'll put rarely see it, but it exists. You know, and then now it's 96% of people say that misinformation.
But the guy
is
that was on the
prevalent
YouTube
on-
video.
Yeah, that's common.
Video.
I mean, that's like asking people, "Are you happy with the Liberal Party?" And people, and you know, and your choice is, "I'm a little happy," "I'm really happy," I'm somewhat happy." And then when they release the results, you know, those three groups, they'll aggregate them together and call them happy. You know, to a certain degree.
It's because the guy that was reporting on this, Marty, was like kind of on a weekly basis. I'm like, no, mofo, this has been like 6 months they've been aggregating this, and you're saying all this is on a weekly basis.
Yeah, no, I frequently do little polls on Twitter, and I've learned to try and avoid that. You know, and then
Twitter polls
one
are
of my
funny.
pet peeves. They're funny, but one of my pet peeves on Twitter, and I always tell people, like, if I ask you for your top choice, that means there is, even if the four choices are good, I still want to know your top choice. And inevitably somebody says all of the above. I'm like, that you answering all of the above does not provide me insight, you know, like it's a pet peeve.
Twitter polls are great though, because like everybody who has followers, they follow you and your opinion, and everybody's sort of has a bias in one direction. So you put out a poll, you know what the result's going to be. And it's like, It's so funny because a lot of people will actually post these polls as like, look at the results I got. This is the truth. It's like, well, nobody who's, you know, all the people on the opposite side aren't following you and aren't getting prompted with this poll. So it's not like a genuine number.
Yeah, well, some numbers are pretty can be interesting. I mean, for instance, you know, I know my followers tend to be conservative, let's say, but I'll ask a question like, I won't say who are you going to vote for in the next election, Trudeau, Max, or Pierre, or Jagmeet. Two of those choices are irrelevant to my followers, so I'll say who are you going to vote for in the next election, and I'll say Pierre or Max, and then I get an interesting I get some interesting results when I ask questions like that. But my favorite Twitter polls have nothing to do with that. My favorite Twitter polls are the ones that are like, "What's your favorite beer?"
Bud Light, right? Oh man, it always comes back to that. As soon as beer comes up in conversation, it's
Did they really give out beer for free? They almost
did.
went for free, didn't they? I saw a post and I thought there's no way that's real, but it was cheaper than water for beer. And
Well, I mean, in
Bud
Canada, in Canada, they're giving crack pipes for free. So
that's the thing. That is the thing. That's what recently that was in Toronto, right? That they were giving those out.
I don't know. I think it was BC. I could be Toronto.
No, it was Edmonton. Well, it's probably all over the place. But
I read about it in Toronto.
Somebody opened up these little packets that had the pipe and the alcohol swabs and things like that. Well, somebody somebody made a great tweet. It was a fantastic tweet. You know, it was a piece of glass with a line of cocaine and a plastic straw. And it said, you know, one of these things is illegal in BC, and it's not the straw. It's like, holy shit.
Right.
Or it's not the drugs. It's, you know, I was like, wow.
Yeah. The straws,
the
plastic straws are illegal.
I mean, what if, Marty, what if we end up finding out that one of the indicators of a thing going completely bust is when they start giving things away for free? Like, that's okay. We've come to the end now. You're giving things away for free. All right. I think you're going to start losing people.
But so like there's this free supply concept, right? And that's not free. It's not free to the taxpayer. And I want to do a bit of more research because I want to find out exactly how much this actually costs the taxpayer when they do things like free supply and give this out, because it's going to be coming at a tremendous cost. Pharmaceutical companies aren't giving discounts to the Canadian government because of whatever altruistic thing that they think that they're doing in this case. But have you guys watched yet the documentary that's out, Canada is Dying?
Yes.
Okay, I encourage everybody who's out there, watch this film. It's amazing. But it really...
Well, I told you my story of taking the train on Monday night, didn't I?
Yes. Well, tell it again.
Like, you know, so I went to the election night, the Conservative Party celebration downtown Calgary. I live out of the country, so I take a train downtown, and it took forever for the vote to come in. They didn't declare the winner until about midnight, and then I wanted to stick around for a little celebration, but then I'm looking at my watch and I asked somebody, I'm like, what's the last train here? Because I took the train downtown, and somebody said 1:00. So I left the party and got on the train at 1:45, and it was one of the scariest experiences of my recent life. I mean, you know, the trains are articulated in the middle, and the seats all face each other except a couple of seats in the middle that are face to face, and 3 or 4 of us from the platform sat there as a little group. And then at both extremities of the train was like just drug users. And I had to open the window, and I was scared because my eyes started watering, because at one end, like, they're cooking meth, man. They're like, you know, or something. I mean, there's this foul smell in the air. There's guys walking around like zombies. They walk past you like zombies, looking in the aisle for God knows what. I mean, if I could stand up and imitate them, like, they were literally zombies, and we weren't even there. I mean, I was scared, but then I realized, we're not even there to them. They're in their own world. But and then I got off at my station, and when I left, you know, they all stayed on the train and they went back. Nobody came to push them off. And all I kept thinking is, like, what happens to these guys? They'll be dead in 2 weeks. I don't know what happens to a person when you're at that stage in your life. But it was, and then, you know, I brought it up with my daughter who lives downtown, and she's like, Dad, I see that every day. I'm like, wow. I live in the country, so I'm not exposed to it. How bad's Montreal, Vesper? Like, are you guys?
So look, I mean, for me, when I go downtown, you sometimes see, you know, panhandlers, homeless people. I'll be honest with you. I try to stay away out of our downtown, not because it's not beautiful, not because of the people. You know, I don't mind anything. I think it's just because when we go downtown, it's like a lot of stores have been shuttered because of what happened at COVID and the mandates and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's like a 40-minute drive for me, and I'm like, is it worth it? I guess after 2025, downtown was no longer the hot spot for us, so I wouldn't know, you know, but I'm certain that it's I mean, fentanyl and things like this don't just come into one province. I'm sure this is all over the States.
It's everywhere.
And
it's everywhere at the moment. It's gross, but
the documentary seemed to point out that Vancouver and British Columbia and parts of Alberta are the worst, right? The documentary didn't really focus on Montreal or Toronto. It seems like
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. It was very
and
Western
is it ironic?
Yeah, it was West centric.
Is it?
But that's because Aaron is a Westerner, isn't he?
He's from Vancouver, yeah. So
so
he
he's familiar
he
with
did
Vancouver,
one documentary called Vancouver is Dying, and then the next one was Canada is Dying. But yeah, it was very based in the West.
But Clyde, let me ask you, what are the odds that whatever's happening in Los Angeles is going up the coast over to Vancouver? Like it's not happening in North Dakota, let's say, as prevalently as it is in Los Angeles. How much of the West is being affected by the West? Genuine question. I have no answer.
Well,
but
that's a tricky one. I mean, like if you're talking about the trafficking of the drugs, well, that can happen. And I think that is happening. It's coming into ports though. I think a lot of it's coming into Vancouver and then going south as well, not just like coming into Portland and going north to Canada. The U.S. is a much bigger market, like as we see. But that would be two borders to travel through. I don't know if the traffickers would want to go through all those efforts. There is one border. It's a weird one. It's like a U.S. town on Vancouver, like just off of Vancouver Island. It's like it's on a peninsula that's only kind of attached to Canada and is just like a little town in America. I think there's trafficking that goes through there, maybe or maybe not at this point. There used to be historically, but like when it comes to trafficking, yeah. When it comes to people, though, I don't think we're seeing like a lot of Americans coming to Canada and being junkies or anything like that. I think what you do find though is you get a lot of people from Eastern Canada coming out to Western Canada because it's moderate, the temperatures. Like you can survive through the winter in Vancouver. It rains a lot, but mostly not gonna freeze.
Yeah. The one thing, I think we talked about this on one of the shows maybe, but one thing I'd like, that I'd like to see is, okay, maybe, the free consumption sites and those things, maybe they're valid and maybe they work, but try it in one city and do a genuine experiment and then for a couple of years and let's learn from it. It just seems that we're doing these weird social experiments simultaneously. And I call them experiments because it's never been done. And to me, it takes years to get some real results. So I find it reckless to do these kinds of social experiments simultaneously in dozens of cities across Canada.
Marty, I want to ask you.
I know there's a problem and the problem needs to be addressed. So, why doesn't, Vancouver should try and address it one way, Edmonton should try and address it a different way.
I agree with that. So like in Amsterdam, a lot of people cite Amsterdam as this place where they had the safe injection sites and that really cleaned up the drug use problem that they had. But what they don't specify is that it was actually churches that ran those sites, and it was private. What the government did was they made allowances for them to be able to do it. So they made exceptions to the law to say, okay, yeah, you guys can run this this site at your location and do what you're doing. But what worked was the ability to socially ostracize the people. So when people would come in for help and they're safe, whatever, they'd be trying to get them off. So they'd be like actually actively working with them. They get to know them, try to wean them off of these drugs. Instead, in Canada, it's run by the government, so you have a right. They can't refuse you service because it's a right under the government and under the charter. And they just then they can abuse the system. So it's not the same sort of environment as the successful cases in the world. And in fact, I think that when you remove the personal ability and you just give everybody a right in a thing and everything's free, you're going to see wild abuses and you're just going to see rampant use.
Well, it was an issue. It's an issue here during the election. Danielle Smith proposed a law where a judge or a police officer or a family member could compel somebody to get treatment, and it's being fought because people are saying, well, no, I have the right to, it's bodily autonomy, and I have the right to refuse treatment and
It's
abuse
funny
myself.
that they're arguing that now.
Well, you know, well, this is what I was going to ask, because honestly, if the question, the 30,000-foot question, Marty and Clyde, that we should just be saying is the liberal pushing the concept of personal freedom to the most stupidest logical ending? Like, you want to be a cat, you could be a cat. Anyone says you're not a cat, I'll arrest them. You want to do this, you could do. Look, this is what it seems like. They're untethering.
I would take that
Pandora's
argument
box.
if they were stupid in the sense of like, okay, well, in the middle of a pandemic, we're not going to make sure that everybody has medications or stuff. You know, they went full force into the vaccination mandates, so that's against freedom. So they're not going for personal freedoms.
I agree with Clyde on that one. I've used that. That's what I've actually said that to a bunch of people lately. Like, if you're pro freedom of choice for the guy who wants to be a drug, abuse his body, that's great. I'm for that. But then no mandates. No, you like, be very careful, because if you want to be truly pro freedom, I'm all for that. But the liberals are pro freedoms that suit them, not all freedoms. That's my opinion on.
Yeah, I mean, Trudeau himself,
because being
said,
a pro freedom person is scary. Yeah, I'm pro freedom, and I get asked that question: would you allow your kids to whatever abuse themselves? I'm like, yeah, I'm pro freedom.
But Trudeau came out and said, what about our freedom to live? These people are putting us all at risk. And I'm like, okay, so you're redefining in a very subjective way what you believe freedom is.
Yeah.
Freedom for you is safety. It's not freedom in the classical sense.
Well, the old adage is that if you trade freedom for security, you end up with neither. But that whole concept is predicated on the idea that the vaccines stop transmission. We know that to be false now, and we knew that to be false then. But it was like you weren't allowed to say that, and even on YouTube, where you weren't allowed to say that. We can say that now, and we're fine with it. And in hindsight, they'll just say, "Well, 2020, hindsight's 2020." But that was
the other thing. The other thing to that argument is that they don't just redefine freedom, but I think in many people's minds, they have a certain hierarchy of rights and freedoms. Mm-hmm. And so I tend to hold, and you and Clyde has a great talks about what you call what do you call them? The real freedoms, and the what are the other ones?
Well, you have negative rights and you have positive rights. So you have, so a negative right would be something there where you don't have to infringe on anyone else's right in order to be able to hold that right. So like your right to your own body, the right to property, the right to, self-preservation, all these rights, right to bear arms, all these rights are not, they don't negate someone else's rights. When you get into positive rights, this is the idea of you're being promised a thing. These are all things that we know as entitlements, right? So you're telling people you have a right to healthcare. Okay, well, what does that entail? At the end of the day, if a doctor does not want to serve you, you're inscripting them to serve you, and you're coming at them and saying, okay, well, now it's involuntary. You're going to have to serve this person. So that infringes on that person's rights. So yeah, this is where there's a lot of conflict in this whole understanding of what rights are. And here's my concept of the whole, like, drugs, say, for example. I would be completely libertarian about drugs and say, yeah, make it all legal, who cares? If everybody had personal responsibility. But the problem is we have a medical system that's socialized. So anybody who has to own up to the consequences to, doing hard drugs on a regular basis, they're gonna take up the medical system, and they're taking away something that is a service that is mandated by the government that you have no other choice to get. And that's a big problem. So unless we alleviate that problem, then we can't really go with the freedoms in the other direction, because there's externalities that go and are fed throughout society. And yeah, it's a cost.
Well, I was about to say, I was watching some people talk in BC about their laws, and like, apparently, and don't quote me on this, I'm still looking into it, that they want to legalize, like, homeless people defecating in public and taking showers in public. And I'm like, okay. So I went back to COVID or the pandemics, and I started saying, all right, what was the big thing that started catching all of our attention? And it was in Italy. I don't know if you guys remember how like all the hospitals were being overwhelmed in Italy, and people were all dying, and everyone was like this. And I'm like, okay, so I said to myself, look how stupid I am. I said, wow, they don't have a medical system like we do here. Maybe this is why that's collapsing there. Okay.
Wow.
Lo and behold, in Quebec, I don't know how about you guys. I just know what has happening in Quebec. The hospitals capacity, we don't have any more beds. We and people are selfish. You should take the shot. There's somebody else that needs it. Then you come in here. And this is what was touted. And I asked myself, okay, maybe you're right. I'll play devil's advocate. Maybe you're right. But also, what if the inverse of that is that your legislation for the past 2 decades, 3 decades has been so incompetent in this province that you have underfunded and undermanaged all these hospitals to the degree that now you're being exposed that you have completely run amok the medical system. And instead of owning up and saying, you know what, we built all these hospitals, made us a lot of money. We made a lot of people rich, but we didn't staff all these hospitals. We didn't properly strategize and get the equipment like beds, this, or we didn't even have ventilators. Like now I know there's arguments that they weren't good anyway, but I think they did serve a purpose. But the whole point is, what if this is what's happening with what you guys are talking about? That instead of them blaming themselves for their absolute incompetence, they're using these arguments like we need to give them drugs. Is it because you can't manage this problem? So what you think managing this problem is, because it's so out of control, is just let them have what they want. What's the worst that's going to happen?
Well, that's a multi-tiered answer to that question. I think they could manage the problem. I think the direction that Danielle Smith is going, I agree with. And you can watch the movie for anyone who's listening. You can watch the movie Canada is Dying to see what Danielle Smith's ideas are, because it's in that movie. I agree with treatment for people. These people they're not pariahs. They're not never going to come back. Like one of the guys who is actually behind organizing it in Alberta was on the streets of Vancouver for 4 years as an addict, and he's reformed and he's recovered and he's doing this. So like the concept here is, well, they're always going to be drug addicts. So let's just be, bleeding hearts. Let's just give them what they need and what they're after. Because, help them in the
But that's what I'm asking you, Clyde.
Not helping them.
That's what I'm asking you.
But here's the thing.
Asking.
So when you got into the pandemic, and the problem was not enough hospital beds. How many hospital beds have we constructed since the pandemic came out? 0. So that wasn't the problem. If that was the solution to get more hospital beds, we haven't gone anywhere in that direction. In fact, one of the things that was really eye-opening for me was when I interviewed Dr. Brian Day of the Canby Surgical Clinic in Vancouver. He was fighting against he went all the way to the Supreme Court in a constitutional challenge in British Columbia for the ability to have a private medical center where you can do surgeries and procedures privately. And he wasn't trying to do this as a way to like make some second tier thing. He was like, no, when there's overflow, let's make a private system. The same thing that they're trying to do in Alberta right now, which would be fantastic. But what he told me was, this is absurd. The hospital's model for business is that the government pays them a lump sum at the beginning of the year for all services performed. All services performed. So afterwards, every service that the hospital actually performs, every staff that they pay for the whole year is at a cost, is a drain on that budget. After which, everything else is profit. So there's an actual incentive for them to slow down services, not do services, this kind of thing, because they're not getting any more. There's not more patients coming in the door to provide more revenue. There's more patients coming in the door to soak up the revenue that they've already gotten.
I didn't know that.
No, I didn't either, and it was like a really big shock to me.
Yeah. Let me bring this up. I mean, as we're talking, I'm thinking about this. You know, we are a modern, evolving society who's evolved quite rapidly in the last, say, 20 years, and
Yeah, that's true.
and we're seeing some of the consequences of our evolution. Like we have gone in some areas, we've done things that are actually turn out to be counterproductive. So excessive rights and freedoms has a problem. I mean, yes, it's good to want all these freedoms, but at some point, you know, as an example, you're trying to solve the drug problem and you go, well, I can't because I'm infringing on your rights. The rights interfere in a lot of ways. I mean, you know, you live in Quebec, and I remember when I worked in Quebec.
You're talking about positive rights, though, right? You're talking about
sure, but let me talk about other rights. I mean, you know, like we live in a society where I can't build pipelines anymore to go across the country because the good of the nation is trumped by the good of the individual in some instances. So I'm just saying that, you know, we're struggling with some of these concepts nowadays. But once in a while, something like COVID comes along and then we throw it all out the door and we say, you know, screw your freedoms and you're going to be forced to wear a mask and do, which shows me that once in a while when there's a willingness or something happens, we can progress. But most of the time we get stuck. Moving forward is becoming increasingly difficult in our society. I mean, you know, and now I understand some days when Trudeau says he admires the basic dictatorship of China or the basic dictatorship of Saudi Arabia, because it actually, I think some of those societies function actually quite nicely compared to us. Wow, it's pretty, I mean, it is weird, but it's because, you know, we're getting to the point where Canada looks like a very dysfunctional society because we've had it so good and we've given ourselves so many rights and freedoms and other benefits.
But every time
we can't solve the drug problem. I mean, I'm kind of thinking we just can't solve it.
I would say though, every time the government has stepped in and usurped that sort of power, they've done it at the detriment of society, not the actual benefit. Like, so for example, the COVID stuff was definitely detrimental. It was lockdowns was harmful to students, to businesses, to countless other people. The masking was just pointless. It was stupid. The barriers.
You're preaching to the choir here.
So
I totally agree.
Totally agree. Yeah, but yeah. So like,
I'm still recovering.
Yeah, and then when they suspended civil liberties for the during the Freedom Convoy, that was detrimental. It was to squash a peaceful protest that they would not have dialogue with. So
yeah,
I mean, this is what totalitarian regimes do. They, you know, what's the expression? It's like when what is it? When the government can only do things when there's emergencies, they'll always make up emergencies so they can do things.
Oh yeah. If you allow governments to break the law during an emergency, they will always give themselves they will always find an excuse to have an emergency.
Yeah, and that seems like that's how we have been governing.
Well, I mean, listen, and when it jumped up in Quebec, I mean, Legault, it was Christmas for him because he immediately tabled bills that had, let's see, $200 million funding to boost the economy to contracts that he feels it should go to.
So mafioso.
Yeah, that doesn't smell corrupt.
That's so mafioso, man.
Hold on. Another law in Bill 6 was, we can also expropriate any land for the greater good and safety of Quebec. What was it? And all these were done cloak and dagger. You got to understand, they did this late. Nobody was paying attention.
Well, the last straw was Viva Frei when they lifted the supremacy of the parent, and he's like, I'm out. I've got to go.
Yeah. Yeah, the Emergency Measures Act and the Medical Emergencies Act are very powerful act. I mean, we think the notwithstanding clause is powerful. They didn't even have to use that one. They just used other acts to do what they wanted to. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they didn't even have to justify it using the justification in the act.
So can we talk about like the two contenders now? I'm not ruling Jagmeet in because he doesn't have a chance.
No, he's not a contender. He's just he's a majority maker or breaker. That's all he is.
Yeah, kingmaker. He's a king. Well, so I have a question for both of you because Look, I'll rile on what I think, but I like listening to both of you's opinions. So Pierre has a stance for this side. Trudeau has clearly his stance for his side. And Canada is somewhere in the middle. Now, I'm from the East. You're from the West. What's great about Marty is that you've been in the East. So you have both flavors.
I grew up in Windsor, Ontario. So I'm.
That's not the East.
Oh, okay.
That's not the East.
So it might as well be America, I guess. It's
yeah, if you're not eating poutine daily, you're not East.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. But what do you guys think? Where is Canada? Because I'll be honest with you, I feel like the majority of Canadians are most likely down to earth, conservative types, even in cities and outside of cities. Am I wrong? Like, how is it that there's still a large base that's voting for, sure, take more of my money, tax me more, do this against my best interest? Are people really that altruistic and that noble in Canada that they would literally go along with NDP liberal ideologies?
Absolutely. I mean,
so
I see it broadly across the country, but I can tell you, like, we just had a really weird week in Alberta. So we had an election on Monday, and when you look at the results of the election, the rural Albertans went blue, conservative, which they'd always been, and the two major cities almost went completely orange. So there's a huge chasm, a huge divide between rural and city Albertans. And this week it manifested itself in some really, really ugly ways. I mean, the tweets, the social media posts, the newspaper articles. I mean, there are journalists that literally wrote stories that said, thank you, rural Alberta, for fucking our future. Like, literally, those were the headlines kind of thing, because they're blaming rural Albertans for letting this election, for allowing Danielle to regain control of the province. And
that's what they
when
wanted.
I witnessed that,
obviously,
sure.
Yeah.
And so when one group gets what they want, it's bad, and when the other one gets it, it's good. But one group doesn't. Anyways, I don't want to get into the group politics, but I just want to say that no, there are very different people. You would think that Canadians are all sort of centrist, and they're not. I mean, there are very conservative people and very progressive people. But at the end of the day, the country, I would say, is better managed when we have centrist governments who can bring who can find the win-win. I mean, me personally, I always benefited under good centrist governments, the Jean Chrétiens of the world and the Paul Martins and the Mulrooney's. Far left, far right won't serve anyone, even though there are far left, far right groups in Canada. But the country, when you travel this country extensively, I can easily identify 10 different regions in this country that think and act and are socially different.
I find it absurd.
I've been pretty astonished at how off the chains people are. Like actually like they're not living in the reality that we're all living in. Like, and there are some conservatives that are really far right or whatever, and they're not that many. Like, it's played off like this is a huge swath of the public in rural communities. It's not really. Like, you go to rural communities, you're not getting like yokels. It's Canada, man. Like, everybody's pretty just moderate, and like even to the point where
I disagree with you.
Well, they exist. Those people exist is what I'm saying. But like, it's not like a prevalent, huge thing. But so you think that is a thing?
I'm gonna disagree, and I'll explain why I disagree.
Okay.
I think an element of this, and this is, again, you'll forgive me trying to Rubik's cube this in my head. There is a subsection of the population that's going along with this because they're afraid, but it's not what they believe.
No. Okay, I was just about to get into that. So what I was saying is, on the right.
Okay, go ahead.
On the right, you've got people. It's mostly just moderate people, and you have a few people are a little bit unchained. But on the left, you go into the cities, and I think people are caught up in this fanaticism of like this weird misrepresentation of what the other side is. And they don't They don't care to know or get to know the other side. They don't care to see if it's true, what they believe, what they think. Like most of these people, they'll never meet a conservative because the conservatives that they know and they talk to on a daily basis won't out themselves as a conservative to these groups because they're so fervent about how much they hate the right. It's crazy.
Well, I was actually going to draw something this week to share with you guys. So you know about the Christian Crusades, how they traveled through Europe, killing and pillaging anybody that wouldn't agree with their philosophy.
Yeah, just hurrah.
Right.
I mean, it didn't exactly go like that, but
now we have the Pride Crusades, and everybody is hearing them, and they're like the boogeyman, and everyone's hiding, and nobody wants to say anything, and everybody's stay away.
But here's the boogeyman. The boogeyman is again a boogie is exactly that. It's a boogeyman. So it's a person that doesn't exist. This like crazy Trumpian version of Canadian version of a Trumpian whatever that people have made up in their mind that isn't this person. Like it's not a real entity, but they have this like filter that they place over people, and they're like, look, that guy's so horrible. This is the way you can demoralize other people or demonize the other, right? And make them this actually allows people to do heinous things to their fellow citizens. We have documentation on other countries that have done this to people, and it's horrible. And this effect is actually lasting, even in Canada with some people on the left. And I'm not saying everybody's like that, but all you need is a certain percentage of the population to make everybody afraid to not go against it because they become the target of that vitriol. And
well, this is what I was going to ask Marty. Isn't this like the gay crusades or the pride crusades?
Well, the attacks come at some point, but the question of why the attacks is, why the division? I mean, back to what we saw this week, you asked me, Clyde, at the beginning on Wednesday when we talked, like why there was a difference between the cities and the rural, and I thought about it a lot, and I'm going to simplify it. We live in a country now where there are people who create. There are people who are mechanics, who are lumberjacks, who are farmers, fishermen, who build houses, pour driveways, do stuff, and then and they tend to live in the rural areas. And I'm some people will criticize me for saying this, but I think a lot of people who now live in cities, or even not in cities, but a shit ton of Canadians, I don't call them creators anymore. They don't do anything meaningful with their lives anymore. They are paper pushers, and they do very menial jobs. And so for them, the real sense of accomplishment doesn't exist. So then they become liberals, and then this whole concept of virtue signaling is real because they have nothing else. My buddies, Clyde, who repairs a car, when you repair a car and you change the front bearings on a Toyota Sienna, you can go home and your kid says, "What'd you do today?" And you go, "I changed the bearings on the car and the car drove away. It was making noise. Now it's not making noise." "What'd you do today, Dad?" "I planted a tree and the tree grew and then I cut it and then made it into a chainsaw." "What did you do today, Dad?" "I drilled an oil well. We got oil out of the ground. We put it in the car and somebody drove away." So me and I would say people who do tend to be conservative, and people who are conservative don't need this bullshit virtue signaling stuff because we accomplish. So, and I encounter that all the time. I get people who like, "Oh, I donate to a church." I'm like, "That's great. I built the fucking church." So you like, and bullshit, you donated to the church because I saw you walk past the homeless guy there and you didn't do anything. So you stepped over him, whereas I actually went and did something for that homeless guy. So I really and then these virtually signaling liberal weaklings at some point have to do something because they run out of virtue, so they have to pick a new virtue. So it's like, I'm going to support the gays and the trans and this and that. I'm like, why are you doing that, man? And I'm getting really emotional about this. I mean, my buddies don't worry about that. They don't worry about that because, and it's not that they don't want to worry about it. I mean, I really don't care if you want to be gay and you want to be trans and want to be whatever you are. But my fundamental problem today is I got to go cut some firewood so I can heat the house, So there is a huge difference between liberals and conservatives, and that's where it comes from. And I saw it this week, man. The cities were just enraged at the countryside, and the countryside in Alberta said to the cities, "Fuck you." I mean, we'll stop. Literally, some guy said, "We'll stop sending you food. We'll starve you to death."
Wow.
By the way,
wow.
can I share?
Well,
Clyde,
before you
Clyde,
do, before you do, I want to chime in on this gay crusade thing, because I don't think there's a gay crusade, and I don't think there's a gay crusade because I don't think actual gay people are the ones perpetrating this. Like I think gay people are just like, just leave me alone. Like, it's just, have you
seen the new hashtag LGBT without the T or whatever
without the
saying
plus
now.
and without everything.
There's a community now that's saying, whoa, you're not helping us, right? Like, we fought long and hard to get where we're at, and you're not helping us.
And the reason why I keep calling it a browbeat is because it is just that. It's a bunch of people saying, I have this virtue and I'm espousing that you don't fit that virtue. And people are like, but I do. What are you talking about? It's the same as like, you're a racist. You have to now prove that you're not a racist somehow. It's like, now the onus is on the wrong foot here. It's like you're making an accusation that's unsubstantiated, and this is the problem with it is people will go with it, and they'll say, okay, that guy's bad because you claimed it, and people are sick of it. People are sick of having to defend themselves, and they're just saying, you know what? Don't care. I don't care about your battle. Don't care about your thing. I don't want to see the rainbows. I just want to, like Marty said, I just want to cut firewood.
I want to make a small observation, Marty. The way you drew that was like fascinating, and all that was in my head was when I watched the third Matrix movie, and I'll tell you why.
I'm gonna have to go rewatch it now.
was that one not memorable?
I'll tell you why. Because Zion is where the last living city was, right? And it was the furthest. It was the furthest from the Machine City underground hiding. Okay, and everybody that was closest to the Machine City was completely either killed or completely abducted or completely like overturned, and they now serve, right? So it's really weird. It's almost like this machine, whoever's in closest proximity to it is completely polluted with it. And the people that are on the outside are not infiltrated by the mechanisms of power from this machine. And I found that fascinating.
It is fascinating now. And an interesting experiment would be, what happens to somebody who lives in the country for, say, 20 years, and then you move them to the city. Do they change, or do they stay?
Yes.
And inevitably you do. I mean, inevitably you change because you've probably, But yeah,
Clyde and I were talking about that movie Devil's Advocate with Al Pacino. You ever watch that?
Yeah. You
remember they came from the country, him and Charlize Theron. They were country bumpkins. They had values, but then he had to keep taking these court cases that were like immoral. And okay, I mean, it doesn't help that Satan is running the law firm, but the idea is that he had to keep compromising. And Charlize in that movie was like, but this is not what we believe in, baby. This is not what we do, baby. He's like, if I just do this case, we'll make it. We'll be fine. We'll be great. But I got to keep compromising everything we've ever believed.
Yeah, it's all about compromise. Yeah. Now, when it comes to this battle of like browbeating, I don't think that it doesn't even matter what the subject is. It doesn't matter if it's gay or about gay rights or anything. What it is it's an excuse to browbeat your fellow people. Right, to find the other side, and then you corner them, you stick them in a position where they have to try to defend themselves, and it's gross, and I don't like the behavior, and I personally I wouldn't hang out with people that behave that way, like and that's
it doesn't. You get browbeaten by somebody because you're not putting a "I love Ukraine" flag on your property right
same
now. It's like,
concept, yeah.
I really don't give a shit about Ukraine. It's a war that's occurring like 3,000 miles away. Oh, you should care about Ukraine. You obviously are whatever. Yeah,
You're a bad
they'll accuse
person
you of
because of
something,
it. Yeah.
and now you have to defend yourself. I'm like, wow, I have to defend myself because I don't have a Ukraine flag on my property.
Well, do you remember the skit from Seinfeld where he didn't want to wear the?
I don't
want to wear the ribbon.
Bully. Yeah, you're a ribbon bully.
But you could use this about my country, Lebanon. When we were getting bombed, where were you? Why didn't you care about me then? Why didn't you care when Syria was bombed? Why didn't you care when all these other places are bombed? Why is this one the one? Because all these other countries, I lost my uncle, I lost my aunt in a war that they had nothing to do with.
Because it's the issue du jour, though. I mean, like it's
a new thing. I think we're going to have to care about every war going on. We didn't care. It's not. And by the way, it's not that we didn't care about the wars in those days. We speaking as a Canadian, we sent peacekeepers and we sent supplies and we did all the things we currently do. We just sort of did them quietly, but now it's at the individual level, and so it goes back to virtuous signaling. I mean, yeah, back to the ribbon. I mean, the poppy. The poppy was an issue that was talked about during this campaign because somebody pulled out an old video of Danielle Smith saying, "I'm not wearing a poppy," and then there was soldiers who said, "I don't wear my poppy anymore," and then people said, They attacked a soldier. I'm like, holy fuck, you're attacking a soldier who is not virtuous enough for you because he's not wearing a poppy, but you're ignoring the fact that he's an actual veteran who fought.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So we get to that level. The browbeatings get ridiculous. Yeah. I mean,
and a lot of these virtues
are elevated.
You could be gay and you could get browbeaten for being gay for refusing to wear.
I mean, I was about to say
a pride flag, and that's what Clyde was saying. There are gays now saying, "Holy shit, I don't even want to."
Want nothing to do with it.
I think,
and it just has to get more and more extreme. Like they're introducing kids to this stuff, and I think the reason why they're doing it is not because. There might be other reasons, but they want to just be more extreme to push the buttons to get people upset. Because it's like nobody's upset about people who are gay in Canada. Like nobody's upset. Nobody cares.
Well, look again. This is the natural evolution of mankind loving himself for decades and centuries and millennia. Eventually, what's going to end up happening is the ego is going to get so inflated that that humanity is just going to be like, this is all about me. It's all about me.
Sorry, I wasn't even muted.
It's okay.
Yeah, good.
I wish you could have seen my son. That's my son Patrick, who just my 6-foot monster just walked by, and I told him to go get me a beer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But what I said, Marty, was this is the natural evolution of a species that's so in love with itself over the past 2 centuries that the natural like end result is that now we're completely relative and we each want what we want. Well, and there is no greater good. It's what I want. And so the ego is now like on like not Red Bull. It's on like, I don't know, some kind of barbiturate or something.
There's that. But I also, one of the jokes I make all the time, like back to the city versus the country is I laugh about first world problems. I mean, somebody in the city has a little bit less problems, I would say, than somebody who's a farmer. And so when your life gets pretty cushy, you have to keep finding something to do or to complain about. And I guess that's another thing is, I don't have.
There's this other fundamental thing that I started to notice about the left, and I've noticed this over a bunch of years. And people would say the left or whatever. I'm talking about people who believe in the tenets of socialism, the idea that the state should take care of things instead of private charity. And I noticed this, that a lot of people on the right or conservative leaning, freedom oriented, libertarian, whatever side of it you want to call it, they tend to more give to private charities like churches or what have you, because this is their way of giving back to their communities. This is a way of investing in community and things like that. Whereas in the socialist mentality would be, well, no, we all have to contribute, and therefore I think that the government should mandate it, and it shouldn't be a voluntaristic sort of thing where you give to charity, but everybody should have to give to charity. And it doesn't feel very charitable to me at that point. Like, I just don't feel the thought is there as much when you're saying, I want to mandate everybody else's money at this thing, because whether it, like, for me, it feels like, oh, you just want to give less to it, and you want to be able to virtue signal to everybody that you've helped out. But it's a fundamental difference in the attitude towards charitable giving it, in my opinion. What do you guys think of that?
I agree. It's also not just charitable giving, but it's also maybe a fundamental difference in how we help. I mean, if your car is broken down, I'll come and pick you up, and I'll bring you home, and I'll tow your car home with you, and then we'll fix it. That's one way to do it. And somebody else would say, oh no, just give the guy money so he can buy himself a new car. I'm like, okay, so there's two ways that we can solve the problem, and my way involves me doing some work and perhaps you doing some work instead of me just giving money. So, and that's the other thing. Conservatives are often accused of not caring. It's like, bullshit. I don't care. I care. Like I said, I'll build a shelter for you. I'm just not going to give you the money. So you need a shelter. I'll help you build a shelter. Better yet, I'll train you and I'll show you how to build a shelter.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Can I ask you both a question? Did you guys see today Andy Lee share that drag event where the guy's inside of a box and they're?
I don't even watch it. I mean, I scrolled by. I saw it. I won't even watch it.
I'm not even gonna look. I'm not gonna hold on. I'm not gonna get into the details.
Okay,
what I will say is this, and I have a question for you and Marty, because I posted that whatever was in that video, because I did watch it, literally is in the criminal code. That if you do this, you are immediately under, like, not only suspicion, but like arrest. And I'm looking at the code and I paste the code. How is it this can happen? Clear indications that this is happening and it's breaking the criminal code. Mm-hmm. I even posted the link to the criminal code. And it's exactly what this person is doing in public, and nobody does anything. Sorry, and I don't mean to rag on anyone. Where's Pierre? Where's Max? Where's Trudeau? Where's Legault? Where's any of them? This is supposed to be our laws.
Well, I think they don't want to be browbeaten, because taking a stance on this is going to lead right immediately to the virtue signaling and the browbeating.
That's the point.
But let me answer it, because I think I take a different approach to a lot of people on this, and I've voiced my opinion on this several times on the channel, and maybe you haven't heard it, but what I encourage people to do, because I think it's really stupid to go to these like drag time kids story hour things and protest them. I think you're really, what you're doing is you're giving the media what they want. The media wants that confrontation. They can film it. They can put it on their websites or whatever. If people are very fervent against it and they think that there's a crime being committed, take your friends and go to the police station. Go there and tell the police there's a crime in progress. I want you to attend to it. And if you don't attend to it, I'm going to fill out paperwork, and you're going to have to deal with that paperwork that I made a complaint that you didn't attend to a crime in progress. And I think that's the best way to do it. If that's the battle you want to go after. I mean, like, if people want to go after these events and these lewd things that are happening in public, and people subjecting their children to it and stuff like that, if you think there's criminal elements to it, file a complaint with the police. I really, really would encourage people to do that, because the police are the ones at the end of the day that will make the decision on this. Vigilantism, I don't think, is a good concept in this. It's not going to get anywhere. It's going to get people in trouble, if anything, and it's going to create a conflict.
But I mean, but Clyde, on its face, if there is nudity and there's children around, I mean, is that not evident?
It's awful.
Like, what police?
It's awful,
officer,
but I can't do anything about it, right?
But if I get completely naked in front of kids, the police would arrest me. Right. And
absolutely,
there's a reason for that.
And they should. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So why is it that this is now suddenly everyone there? Okay. Samuel Rutherford. I don't know if you know who he is. He coined a Latin saying "lex rex," law is king. Okay.
Mhm.
And then later on in his life, because of corruption, he coined a statement to kind of satire that last one. He says, Rex is Rex, king is king. Like that there's people that are usurping the law. The law is meant to be king, but now you're putting yourself in the position of being king. So the law is basically trampled on.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
what's the point?
but I totally agree with what Clyde said. I mean, literally, sure, it's illegal to get naked on the street. But if a guy goes and gets, I just walk down the street where nobody lives on right now. Nobody lives on this street and it's deserted. So if I go get naked on this street, I'm breaking the law, but nobody's witnessing it and nobody gives a shit. Vice versa, I can go get naked on this deserted street, and if 6 people come around and walk by and they don't care that I got naked on the street, then there's no crime committed. The law exists that if somebody needs needs recourse, they can go to the law. So you didn't witness that event, and I don't give a shit what that event is. And so it occurred, but it doesn't. If it occurred with a bunch of people there that were okay with it, then it is what it is. If you happen to witness it and you didn't like it, then yes, like Clyde said, call the police or do whatever.
And if there was a minor, if there was a minor involved, then you do have the right to file a complaint and do that. And if the police don't do anything, then you talk to your MLA, and then you escalate, and then you go up the.
But that's what I'm saying,
it, right?
That's what I'm asking. Are you saying that the laws we have are not objective laws? That it only works so long
they
as
never are.
Offended.
They never are.
They never are. Laws are never. They're never that objective. Absolutely not. I can. Yeah. The law in my neighborhood here says I can't blast my music after 11 o'clock. It doesn't mean that. But if my neighbor's not there and I have no neighbors tonight, I can blast music at midnight because I'm not waking up anybody and nobody can hear it. Mm-hmm. So by your definition, you would be arguing that I'm breaking the law. I'm like, no, I'm not breaking the law, because for a law has to be broken, but there also has to be damages or somebody has to be harmed by what I'm doing. So
you're saying the government is also selectively picking the laws?
No. The government puts the law in place, and when they need the law, they call on it. But that doesn't mean that it has to be enforced all the time.
Right. So, like, I would never advocate for citizens' arrest or anything like that. Like, don't attempt that. Like, it's not going to go. That'll never go well. But like, if law enforcement were to catch somebody in the act of doing a criminal thing, then they're at the discretion, though. They are at a point, like the amount of times I've heard stories growing up when pot was still legal, and officers were like, they know the law. You gotta confiscate it, and then you gotta put the kid in jail. That's not what happened. It was always, I'm taking it from you. Get out of here. Go home, kids. Or like, you're caught drinking in the park, and the cop would pour your beer out. Get out of here. Go home.
Yeah,
and
so
it's not going by the letter of the law, but but at the same time, it's not.
Vesper, the event you saw was disgusting and immoral. That's fine, but you saw a video of it and you're offended by it. But the fact that it occurred and it is probably illegal doesn't. It can occur without any consequences. That's always been the case.
But see, I wonder, because sometimes you hear from like credible sources, police do investigations, or they do, let's say, they find out that this is going to happen, and so they prepare for this. I'm just asking myself, the legal system and the law that we have to protect against lewdness, indecency, and all these things, I can't understand why the police and the governments are not galvanized to maintain these laws for people. Why these laws are being laxed.
I think
that's where I'm confused.
If we were to answer these questions the best, it would probably be like to bring on a lawyer and a cop. Like those people would be able to answer those questions the best. But like, in my opinion, as an outside observer, if you see lewd behavior and the date and the time and all that stuff of a video, send it to the cops. What's the harm?
Yeah,
send it to the cops. They'll make judgment
on this weird topic. Speaking of browbeating, I don't touch it for lots of reasons. I mean, it's not a topic I like touching, and then I've touched on it, but apparently I'm not critical enough of it, and then I get called not conservative enough for not being more offended by it. So so on this topic, I get browbeaten by the left and by the right.
Oh.
So it's not a topic
because you just don't want to talk about it.
I just don't want to talk about it. I'll talk about it privately, but not publicly, because
that's fair.
I hate the browbeating that comes on this one.
Yeah.
And then fundamentally, don't get mad, but I am fundamentally a libertarian, and if nobody's getting hurt, I really don't give a shit. Now, when kids are involved, that's a whole different story. But if a bunch of adults want to go do something stupidly lewd in private somewhere, knock yourself out, man. I really don't give a shit.
Yeah. And like I said, my stance has been pretty
Do it at
clear.
the school, and I'll be the first one there to don't do that at the school with my kids present.
Yeah.
Somebody might say I'm not conservative enough. You're going to see just how conservative I am if you do this at a school.
Well, I think that's pretty fair. That's pretty fair. But yeah, I don't like the browbeating, and when again with the lewd behavior. I have some friends in the city, lesbian couple, and we were hanging out, and I asked them one time. I was like, "What's with pride? What is the deal? Like, it's lewd. This is all before all of this stuff started hitting the fan. It was before all the woke stuff." And they're just like, "Oh, yeah, we don't like it. Like, it's not our thing. We don't do that." It's a smaller group of people than people let on. Like, and that's the whole point. A lot of these things like woke culture, the loud obnoxious people that are advocating for these bizarre things, they're smaller groups than are ever let on. It's just they're loud. They're loud. Yeah. And when you're around social media long enough, you'll start to recognize them more and more. You're like, "Oh, I saw you. You're at that thing." And that's how small these groups actually are.
Which I don't want to go long there, but brings it back to, like, I'm still confused why somebody like, let's say, the NHL would adopt this whole pride thing, because I do think the group is small, and the increased share of the audience that they might get by going down that path. So when the NHL and businesses do it, I think we discussed it enough. It's more than just to get more market share. It's driven by something bigger. There's a bigger agenda. So it's a small group that's part of a bigger agenda by powerful individuals.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it on Valuetainment, Clyde. Remember when we were watching that show with Goika? And he asked him about, he talked to him about George Soros. He's like, "Do you know this guy gave $32 billion to the Human Rights Campaign? And that these guys are all funding this DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion."
So,
and that they have this.
What I see a lot of this stuff is a demoralization of society. I don't see it as like a one particular thing that they're trying to go towards, because if that thing dries up, then they'll go to the next thing that's demoralizing, right? Black Lives Matter with their defund the police, super demoralizing, and they funded all of that stuff too. So I think they're equal opportunity demoralizers in my opinion.
But hold on. They got the reason Bud Light is where Bud Light was, and the reason Target is where Target is because of a lot of the DEI scores that they're trying to get.
Yeah.
For some reason, these guys have set themselves up as the arbiters of what.
Oh, I see. Valuable. Yeah, DEI.
Diversity,
we often call it
equity and inclusion. Yeah.
Yeah. Or
right. Like it's not just it's not just ESG.
Yeah. Gotcha.
DEI.
Gotcha.
And now what's happening is Target's trying to hit a target. Like,
because they have shareholders. Yeah. I mean, you can be a giant corporation and you have even a 10% majority shareholder in a corporation can guide your requirement. Actually, I speak by experience. I mean, I'm an investor, and that, last year or last month, I get quarterly or annual reports for I got dozens and dozens of them. And it was incredible when you read the motions, how many motions at upcoming AGMs were related to inclusion and diversity and whatever. I should have kept the ballot for Amazon. Holy shit, man. Amazon voters are going to have to vote on about 40 different motions brought in by shareholders all along that. What's our strategy on whatever, green, solar, inclusion, gays, blah, 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 blah.
But that's my question to you.
Yeah.
If you're an investor, speak to me as an investor, because you probably are a better investor than I am. I'm asking an investor now. You lose $13 billion market cap in a month Like, why does ESG even matter or DEI even matter anymore to the majority of the investors?
So I mean,
because they're bound by that shareholders. You're right. It shouldn't matter. But if it matters to a guy who owns 10%, he can make it matter for the whole company. That's just.
And so the only way out, you mean, is when they just say, "Well, look, I'll cut my losses and bounce," and then that shareholder might change his mind.
So as an example, when I got the Amazon ballot for the AGM, it had these, you vote for the directors, you vote to approve the auditors, and then you vote for the compensation of the directors. That's usually the top three of every corporation. And then usually you have a couple of special motions. They had 40 special motions, let's say. And then the board of directors said their recommendation was vote against all of those. Now, most shareholders don't even vote, but they automatically give their proxy to a director who votes on their behalf. So most of those motions never get passed. But if a very activist group succeeds in taking control, they will pass one of those motions. That's great. They'll pass a motion. But I guarantee you, if the motion passes and it leads that company down a path to do something really stupid, then markets dictate. And I guarantee you that shareholder will either jump, or if he doesn't jump, all the other shareholders jump.
Well, and this goes into that speculation that somebody, a friend of mine was bringing towards me, though, that maybe some of these companies are being guided because they're being shorted. Because they know that 5 years down the road, this company's not going to exist anyway. Why don't we just short the company, make a
some of that can be absolutely valid. But to your original question, when I go to so I'm I'm no longer I've been president of two large corporations. So I've been presidents of two large corporations that had to do this, and we did it. I mean, we do what's required by law. So in some instances, it's the law. So the law in Canada says I have to comply with Sarbanes-Oxley, and another law in Canada says I have to do an ESG report. Fine, I do an ESG report. And me personally, in the company I work for, that I manage, we do the bare freaking minimum. Because my investors, I was an oil company, my investors overwhelmingly told me, Marty, we don't give a shit about that stuff. What we care about is you give us 10% return year over year, every year after that. Done. So I would do to me, doing the ESG report is no different than being compliant with laws and doing things safely and protecting the environment. I mean, you get certain things that are a minimum requirement. And I think that's an example of something that's it's going to go. It might not go. I mean, some of it is good. Some of it does make some of it does make sense. I mean, I think it's good to bring more women into the board of directors and head offices, but it shouldn't be done by force, but encouraged, and it's happening. So there are positive things happening, but at the end of the day, I'll give you another example. I mean, about a decade ago, more than a decade ago, about 15 years ago, a lot of companies got onto this ethical, we're dolphin free, we're this, we're that. I mean, they got onto this ethical bandwidth.
It's always something, right? It's always something.
And then they attracted some investors. That's fine. And it was a gimmick. But then before long, they all went bankrupt because markets are dog eat dog. You got to be competitive. So, and somebody will say that, oh yeah, we're going to sell tuna that is guaranteed dolphin free, and all our tuna is caught by hand and it's never caught by gill nets. And then it's like, okay, how much are we selling the can of tuna? $14 a can. and then the other guy sells his can for 99 cents. You put the two cans on the market, and then the guy was like, oh yeah, I love dolphins, blah blah blah. It's like, well, here's a $14 can of tuna, and then you watch. What's that pretty little girl going to do when you're not watching? She's going to take that $14 can and she's going to put it back there, and she's going to buy the 99-cent one. If you're watching, she'll buy the $14 can. She might buy one or two, carry it in her bag so her friends can see her buying that $14 can of tuna. But at the end of the day, it's tuna is an example. So, how many girls walk around with a Gucci shirt and they go, I'm pro environment. I'm like, man, your shirt was made in a sweatshop in fucking Thailand.
Here's a good one though. Here's a good one. And Vesper, you're gonna like this one.
Sorry to swear.
No, it's all good. You're gonna like this one because this is a brand that was out west, and I don't know if it still exists because I don't do the grocery shopping anymore. But you go into the aisle where you buy your foils and your parchment paper and all that stuff, and they all come with like nice packaging and all this other stuff. Well, this one brand came out, and it was all just brown packaging. And it looked like it was stamped, like the logos were all just stamped on it, like it
stenciled with a spray paint.
Yeah,
or
it was like
something?
less quality, but it says it said like "if you care" brand or something like that, and it was like this whole story about like being ethical to the environment and all this stuff, and it was total marketing wank, and it was like $2 more for every product, and it would sell out all the time because people would like, they'd go through the grocery store turnbuckle or whatever, the conveyor,
done properly,
they'd feel all good about themselves because they care, right?
It's all marketing. I mean, done properly, it'll work in some instances, and done improperly.
It's the same done product in a different box, though. It's just hilarious.
Before we talk about anything else, climate, agriculture, and marketing, let's ask Marty. How much BS is the recycling industry, period, in Canada?
Well, I think it's one of those big myths that you can't talk about. I mean, I think recycling, from what I've seen, a lot of recycling ends up on barges and being towed across the ocean somewhere. I mean, we like to feel good about recycling. I'll talk to you practically. I'd love to recycle. Sure, I'm gonna say let's recycle, reuse. I do it all the time.
We all do.
But as an engineer, I will also say that some things are not worth recycling. It's sad, but it is what it is.
And even impossible.
We got rid of the
impossible to recycle some of those things.
Do you remember there was three things, right? It was reduce, reuse, and recycle. Now we only say recycle. We don't do the reduce and reuse thing.
I can't even I can't even reuse. I'll give you an example. Like, I go backpacking all the time, and I have these little stove fuel canisters, right? And I refill the fuel canisters. I buy bulk butane and I refill them.
Oh, nice.
I go to the recycle depot the other day, and there's a whole bunch of them there. And I asked the guy, like, I grabbed a couple, and the guy's like, "You can't grab them." I'm like, "What do you mean I can't grab them?" It's like, well, once they're here, you can't grab them. I can't grab a propane canister. I can't grab an old propane tank. I can't grab an old lawnmower and take it home to fix it or show my kids how to fix it. Once it's at the recycle depot, I can't take it out of there. I'm like, holy shit, man.
Wow.
Yeah. I still laugh that people throw plastic bottles into the recycling bin. Like, that stuff does not recycle. Plastic's not going to recycle. Plastic bottles are not going to recycle.
They just mulch it. They just mulch it, and then that's it.
Yeah.
It's
crazy. This is what's undergirding this whole problem that we're all.
Well, it makes you feel good when you recycle. You put some of your trash in a blue bin, and you put some of your trash in the green bin, and you put some of your, you know what I mean? Like, you separate them all.
It's fun. It's funny that we talk about this topic because my wife gets mad at me all the time because I put shit in the garbage, and she's like, "Put in the recycle." I'm like, "Honey, they end up in the same spot." I know they end up.
They do.
Actually, can I tell you a really cool story? Let me tell you a story of how this gets taken to a whole excessive limit. In the backcountry. So I hike a lot. So even in the backcountry, they're taking this environmental approach. So in the campsites in the past, there was a hole in the ground and a log across the trees, and you hang your ass over there and you take a shit in the hole. And then at the end of the year, somebody buries that hole and digs another hole. Then on some of the popular trails, they started putting these barrels. And the idea was that they were going to be these composting barrels. You shit in the barrels. There's 3 barrels. You shit in this one. There's a complicated process. You slide it over, and then you shit in that one or whatever. And then And it doesn't work. It's a bad idea. So I'm at a campground last year, and all of a sudden the helicopter's buzzing from Parks Canada, and the helicopter comes and lands. 2 guys walk out, and I know a lot of these guys. And then one guy walks into the campground, and he's like, 5-minute warning, we're picking up the barrel. So everybody go do your business real quick. There's 6 or 7 people.
Oh, no.
And then he picks up the barrel, and he goes
away.
I'm laughing. And then he comes back like within seconds. And I told the one girl, I'm like, yeah, he just flew it over into the valley next door, and he dumped it. She's like, no, he didn't. I'm like, honey.
Yeah, he did.
Honey. The trailhead is 40 fucking kilometers from here. Okay. He did not take the barrel, fly 40 kilometers to a waiting truck to then drive the barrel to the town of Jasper to then take it to the processing plant. No. This guy works for Parks Canada. He's paid by the hour. He's flying a helicopter. He's got a whole bunch of barrels to pick up. He picked up this one, dumped it into the valley, and then brought it right back. So, and when I told her that, she is shocked. And she doesn't want to believe me. And like, I shouldn't have told her anything. I should have just said, yeah, the barrel is.
It's the illusion that people love, right? They feel good about it.
This story that he just told us is exactly what we're facing in Canada.
It is.
The people that love the illusion. The people that love the illusion. No, just in general.
Yeah, in general, not just recycling. Yeah, absolutely.
They want the illusion, and then you get a guy as caustic as Marty. They'll say, like, I don't give a shit about what you think. Like, this is what it is. And if you don't accept it, what do you want me to do?
The town of Whitecourt, I lived up north. The town of Whitecourt had a debate in town about whether we should paint the streets using water-soluble paint or oil-based paint. And somebody was making the argument that we should use water-soluble paint. And they were like discussing, well, it's going to wash off faster. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. Finally, somebody said, whoa, stop. What the frick are you doing? You're talking about putting oil on top of oil. What the hell do you think the road is made of?
It's asphalt, man. It's not concrete.
It's asphalt. And what is asphalt? It's
oil. It's oil and aggregate.
It's oil and aggregate. And they want to put water-based paint on top of it, which is going to be ineffective, more costly, accomplish nothing. It's completely.
It sounds
ridiculous.
like it's a street from Montreal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Montreal won the Teddy Award several years ago because they caught a street sweeper sweeping the snow in the middle of March when there was no snow on the street. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're like pothole. We're like the pothole king in North America, dude.
Oh, that's brutal.
No, and I do this, this is my shtick. This is one of the things I do on Twitter, and it's one of the things I do on YouTube and places like that. I like to just break down those myths to people. I've always tried to encourage people, like, really think about this. Like, just like, honey, think about this. Do you really think the helicopter was gone for 3 minutes? I put a big X on the side of the barrel. The helicopter's gone for 3 minutes, comes back, it's the same barrel with the X on the side. Where do you think the helicopter went?
He's convincing her with physics.
Didn't grab another barrel.
Convincing her with physics.
It's the same barrel.
He's showing her.
There's no other barrel. Trust me, there's no other barrel.
No, but come on, listen to me. Our wives, you could show them mathematics and physics, and they will still beat you in an argument.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, you only go so far. You learn where the extent of it is. That's the way to go. But hey, guys, we've been going for what, 2 hours now on the live.
Really?
The live's been going for over 3. So I'm gonna cut the live stream. I still have things that I probably want to bring up.
No, I'm gonna be done too. I didn't realize it was so late. It's holy shit. It's 10:30. Vesper. It's like 12:30 your time. He's in Montreal, man. The restaurants are just opening right now. He's going to dinner right now. Like, don't show up at a restaurant in Montreal at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
What,
no
people,
way, man.
People
no
eat.
I'm still waiting on you, Marty.
Yeah,
Marty, I'm still waiting on you. We go get some Chinese food.
It's looking good, man. I'm still waiting to hear. Like, I bid on a job in Quebec. Two people bid on the job, and I know the other guy who bid on the job. So if I don't get the job, he will, and I'll collaborate with him. So one way or another, I'm going to be in Quebec in the next 2 months, and
would love to see you out in Montreal.
I'll be in Montreal, going to Chateau or not Chateau Richer. The job is on the north shore of the St. Lawrence, just west of Montreal. Just east. What's the community just east of Montreal on the north shore?
It's not
Repentigny.
Repentigny, yes.
It's in Repentigny. So one job's
that's not far from you. That's
well,
like
you
away.
guys work this out after the stream. I'm just gonna end this off because we're still
completely
live,
forgot. We completely forgot that it was his stream.
Yeah, we're live. We're live, and you're just like, okay, let's make some plans next. Okay, no, this was great, and it was super fun experience having you guys. It got a little uncomfortable. It got a little comfortable, and we had a good conversation. So I want to thank you guys both for coming out. Vesper D, you can check him out on social media. I'll make sure the link's in the description down below. He's on a one-man mission to get rid of Trudeau, and that account's gone as soon as he's gone too. Marty up north, you can find him on YouTube as well as on Twitter, where he's got a complete different type of content depending on what platform you go check him out on. It's nature hikes and great stuff on YouTube, and it's political commentary and stuff like we were talking about tonight on
Political
Twitter.
blood sport.
Yeah.
Blood sport.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining, and well, I'm just going to end the live stream from here. Thank everybody for joining. We'll be in the Discord in a little bit, so if you're not a member of the Discord, hit the link in the description down below. You can join up for free. It's a free service. Get in there. We'll be chatting, and I think Marty's gonna be taking off, but I'll be in there in a little bit to chat. Anyway, we'll see you guys on Monday, as always, and as always, keep on trucking.
Cheers, everyone.